Dennis.
Yes, sir.
Eileen is here, so we can.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, did he put anything on there? Oh, 2A. Okay.
Yeah, she sent an email that revised the new season will be there. We have a lot of school groups who speak, and I'll just do the introduction. You might want to give her a phone call. Yeah, I will. Oh, you're on the list.
Well, it wasn't entirely clear, so I gotta see. I don't know if I got it now. Okay, well, I'll see you there.
It mainly for us to make phone calls.
Yeah.
Everybody. You got a pretty good turnout.
For the event. Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
And I figured we wouldn't have any audience.
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk briefly about the. I mean, I don't think anyone there is going to be just talking about the basic founding of the district, kind of what these missionaries did. And I guess I'm trying to set up framework.
Take whatever cue I miss.
Yeah.
Take it from there.
Hello, man. Okay.
But I think we want to keep it moving. Always keep it moving with people. Want to get there.
Yeah, but with that said, we got to say something.
Oh, we always do.
I know.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, do the cake. Yeah. We'll be right after. I give up. There's two. The rest are still working on their calendar. Oh.
Oh, yeah, I told him about Bruce.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wait a minute.
If you can find a spot to sit or whatever, including board members, we'll try to get this, I'm going to call it a party, started. Okay. Do we have everyone? Nope, one second more. All right, I would like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to surprise someone. Eric Fuller, will you lead us in the pledge? He was standing, he knew I was going to do it. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Eric. First of all, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. I think you heard Watsby and Lane. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, I should keep you waiting for the cake, but I'm not that clear. So we are going to, first of all, ask Eric, since he's already available, to come up and tell us a little bit why we're having cake.
Well, 85 years ago, I believe on this day, the residents of the East Bay voted to establish the East Bay Regional Park District. That was only made possible by citizen activism that got legislation passed to allow a district to be formed. So we owe those folks 85 years ago and 86 years ago, frankly, a great deal of gratitude to be here today. And of course, being the government affairs person, we have some folks from elected official offices to offer some proclamations today. So first I want to introduce Robert Rogers, who's the district coordinator for Supervisor John Joya. And I believe this might be Robert's first time to district headquarters. So if you can come up, Rob.
No, I welcomed him earlier, and he said he was glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much. I am delighted to be here. Again, I'm Robert Rogers. I'm here on behalf of Contra Costa County Supervisor John Joya. Supervisor Joya wishes he could be here to congratulate you himself on this 85th anniversary. He wanted to also be able to extend some regards about the incredible work the East Bay Regional Parks District has done over the years. Supervisor Joya has been in office in West Contra Costa County for 20 years, during which time East Bay Regional Parks District has been an indispensable partner in the preservation of open space and the use of recreation and other facilities that benefit the residents of Contra Costa County. And we couldn't be happier to have you as a partner over the years and in serving the residents in Contra Costa County. I see Commissioner Dodson, or Board Member Dodson here, who is a frequent guest at events throughout West Contra Costa County, and many others, Commissioner Coffey as well. And we're really delighted to have had you in so many places in West Contra Costa County over the years. I also have a very handsome proclamation from which I'd like to read a few passages that I think are really noteworthy. And so if you'll indulge me, I'll start at the top. This is in the matter recognizing East Bay Regional Park District for their 85th anniversary. The East Bay Regional Park District is a system of beautiful parklands and trails in Alameda and Contra Costa counties to the east of San Francisco. And whereas the mission of East Bay Regional Parks District is to preserve the rich heritage and natural cultural resources and provide open space, parks, trails, safe and healthful recreation, and environmental education. And whereas the district envisions an extraordinary and well-managed system of open space parkland in Alameda and Contra Costa County, which will forever provide the opportunity for a growing and diverse community to experience nature nearby. Whereas in 1964 in West and Central Contra Costa County, they would approve the annexation of East Bay Regional Parks District, and Kennedy Grove and Briones were soon developed and opened as the first regional parks entirely within Contra Costa County. And I'll also note on a personal level The North Richmond, the park that's at the North Richmond Point Panola shoreline is a tremendous jewel in West Contra Costa County. We have the annual Shoreline Festival there for the benefit of North Richmond residents and beyond. Whitney Dodson and Colin Coffey and many others are always attendees there. It's just a magical event that draws thousands from across West Contra Costa County and beyond, and it's really a testament to the great stewardship of East Bay Regional Parks District. So now, skipping toward the bottom, I'll say, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Contra Costa County does hereby recognize the East Bay Regional Parks District for their 85 years of service to our communities and dedication preserving open space, trails, and natural environments. So again, on behalf of Contra Costa County, as well as Chair, Board Supervisor John Joya, really like to say thank you and congratulations.
And also, we have a representative from Alameda County, Amy Shago, who's the Chief of Staff for Supervisor Keith Carson, with whom we've worked on a number of issues with through East Bay EDA, and he's been a long time champion for Alameda County. So, Amy?
Thank you so much for having me here today. The supervisor is sorry that he can't be here. He's on a delegation with East Bay EDA. In China, and one of the things that they're talking about is how great the East Bay is, and one of the things that makes it so great is our beautiful parks that makes Alameda County a great place to live, work, play, and do business, something that the supervisor is very proud of. I too have a commendation for you all in honor of your 85 years, but it says many of the same things that the one from Contra Costa does, although we're quite proud that the three original parks are in the supervisor's district, and I know he utilizes them on a weekly basis, as do I. I have a train-loving child, and we are in Tilden every weekend. And we are so lucky to have these in our community. As a lifelong East Bay resident, I have explored every single one of the parks, and it's something that our family did over the last few years, and a very cool challenge to do, especially with little kids getting to explore. And one thing we very much love are the naturalists in the parks and the interpretive centers, and especially Crab Cove, and getting to be at the beach and talking to those folks who love the kids and love the nature and the animals just makes this an incredible place to live. And thank you so much for your work to keep our parks open and accessible to all of our community.
Thank you. That concludes the presentations, but I do think we're going to try to do a quick picture before cake with the two representatives.
Okay. Where
It's
would you
very dangerous to get in between board members and cake. I
Now,
just want you
maybe
to know
we can
that.
put the board members and make them wait for cake.
Sure.
We can do that, board members. Well, if they come at you, fight them off. Sure, we'll have a picture over to the left. I want to thank both of you for being here, and well, I don't know Supervisor Joya. I have known Keith for a very long time, and tell him I'm not sure that's a good excuse for not being here, but we'll forgive him, and thank him very much for his commendation. If you're a park lover, you know the East Bay Regional Park District. Can I say it? The best park system in the world. We know that. All right. Now, the next thing to my right is going to be cake, and the audience may start over there while we are all going to wait and have a picture. How's that? Okay? Thanks. Let them eat cake.
La 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 la. I hope it's recording. Where's she at? Director Wieskamp, we have one public comment, and then we have a speaker for 2A. 2A.
Okay, guys, 5 minutes to finish your cake, and then we're starting. Early warning. Who do I apply it to? Kelly. That's who I'll apply it to. Then it wouldn't help.
It'll make the same noise, though.
Thanks for the volunteering.
Kelly,
Now, come on, I don't see anybody moving.
my baby.
It takes a while to get their attention.
A border collie, don't you? I'm jealous.
I need to make the chief go round them up.
I got last night's shot for you. What a cutie.
I hate to be picky, but move on.
We're on,
Pescadero.
Oh well, we'll send you out in a minute.
my
We'll see
babies
if
last
somebody's
night.
moving. That's one thing about this group gets together. They all like to talk to each other.
Sinners and saints.
Kelly, could you do me a favor?
Last night.
I'm going to point. Could you go tell everybody to please sit down? Thank you. I figured this is better to have him as a roundup person. Don't disappear, Dennis. Don't you dare.
Everybody, please. Staff. Wow,
Everybody,
that worked.
take your cake with
Sorry.
you if you like.
Love base,
Get
we
another
love base.
piece. You okay?
Sitting on this.
Chocolate on my teeth.
Are you good?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've had our presentations, we've had our cake, and we will move to the consent calendar. What's the first item I know some had been answered.
We do have a public comment.
Oh, we have a public comment at this time? Then I would let that happen, please. Invite them forward.
Mr. Abreu?
One of the frequent topics here is trails development, and turns out that the mapping, geopolitical map, is very much related to trails development, at least at Vargas Plateau Regional Park. One of the trails that was being used to access the park was called Morrison Canyon Road. Morrison Canyon Road was erased from the map thanks to a court action. Some people in Fremont sued the park district, and as a result of the lawsuit, the road was erased from the map. Well, good news. After a year of the city is now undertaking a environmental impact report for the road shutdown. The road has been shut down for about almost exactly a year. The road is now 1.5 miles of new walking and hiking trail. Beautiful trail, done at very low cost. Paved trail, 1.5 miles, Morrison Canyon Road, and it accesses the Vargas Plateau Regional Park. So that geopolitical map, I suggest maybe we need to redraw it. Redraw the geopolitical map and maybe restore the road to the park map. Maybe put the road back on, and maybe we can call that a walking trail because it's illegal to drive on it as of now. The environmental impact report will be coming out in about 6 months or something. The accounting for the budget at Mission Peak, that was that question. There was a question about accounting discrepancies. That's been fully defined now. It's $1.6 million. Some of it's been spent. Only $0.9 million remains. So that was okayed by the board, and we can now put the rest of the idea that the money was lost. It's not lost. The budget is right there. The project is approved, and we're just need to get that thing moving along. The design and permitting phase. We're not talking about the whole, just design and permitting is very well defined and very well budgeted. And also on the subject of accountability, there's a liaison committee over there in Fremont. And you can see that it was supposed to be meeting 3 times a year. Well, last time it met was 8 months ago, so that's twice the interval, the 4-month interval that it should be having. And furthermore, went down the list. There's 108 liaison meetings that have happened since 2014 on your website. 108. 2 of them have been canceled. Both of them were with the city of Fremont, and both of them are this year. So we're getting, some political problems. We need to get people coming to the table. We need to get the city at the table. We need to get this park district at the table. We need to follow through on commitments. We need to hold liaison meetings as scheduled and get people to talk at the staff level, at the public, and allow a forum for citizen activism. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abreu.
We have no more.
We have no more public comments at this time, so
No,
we'll
Madam President.
go to the consent calendar. What's the first item that someone needed a discussion? I know some of them haven't been
The
resolved.
Director Rosario's questions have all been answered.
Okay.
But we do still have item
I believe item E.
Item C. Are we pulling that for discussion, Director Lane?
Which one?
Item C, the start
Okay.
time. Item E, Director Lane.
P, no, I'm not.
You're not going to do it? Okay.
We have E. Is there any other one?
Yeah, then we have P, Director Lane.
Okay.
That's all that I have on the consent, unless another board member has something that.
D?
Oh,
C. All right. Item C. C is in cat. Okay, that's the first one? All right.
Are you pulling that for discussion, item
Wait.
C?
C. Resolution changing the start time of the December 3rd regular Board of Directors meeting to 6 p.m. is the item. Director Lane.
I realize that last year we did have this first meeting in the evening, and for myself, I viewed that as an experiment. And so now we are talking about scheduling it again this year. And I think I shared a few reasons why I thought that we should continue to have the meeting in our regular time at 1 or 2 o'clock, whatever is appropriate. And I'll just list a few of these here. You know, we are a regional body. We're not a city council. And along with every other regional body, we do have our meetings during the day regularly. And I think we should be consistent about that. I understand people have opinions about why they think it should be in the evening, but for looking at budget meetings and expecting people to come from West County, East County, and the Tri-Valley in the middle of rush hour to a meeting, I think is not a good idea. It's not respectful of the visitors that we might want to have come to a budget meeting. So I listed a few others on it, and one of which is, of course, Director Coffey cannot come to a meeting at all on the first Tuesday evening of December, and so we are automatically precluding one of our board members from being in the first budget meeting, which is the one in which we do bring all of our comments. And, there are other reasons, which I believe I have shared. So I do want to say that I think this meeting needs to be at what is normally our regular time and not the 6 o'clock time.
Then I will open it up for responses or thoughts on that. Anyone else? Director Rosario.
Thank you. The fact that we are a regional agency makes it even more important for us to at least have one night meeting, especially one as important as the first public hearing of our budget. And I think the public, the portion of the public that has to work during the day is being excluded. This is an opportunity for that portion of the population to come to express their wants and needs, and to hear what we have to present as far as the monies that they've voted in. And I just think it's really important to be inclusive, and one meeting out of the year isn't an undue burden on staff or board members. It's unfortunate that Director Coffey can't make the first meeting, but I think it's very important, transparency-wise, and as far as being inclusive to the population in both of our counties.
Anyone else have a comment? Director Wasby.
Thank you. While I respect Director Lane's reasoning for our regional body and some of the other reasons of people not being able to do a night meeting, I agree with Director Rosario. I think for one meeting a year, and even I have been committed, and I committed myself to greater transparency, greater accessibility, greater inclusivity. I think we owe it to our public to do this, have a night meeting, and I think one a year. I think that's the least we could do to to change our schedules to make ourselves more accessible, and I wish we could do more.
Anyone else? Director Corbett.
I do also agree that we do need to make sure that we are accessible and transparent, and that we do have the opportunity to have some evening meetings. And I know that this was an experiment, and I think it's an experiment to take a look and see whether we should be doing more meetings in the evening as well. And it'll take some time to see if this is working. But I do have a question. I don't know if it can be answered at this time, but we do have more than one budget hearing. And I don't like the idea of excluding a board member knowing that there is a conflict every year at this particular time and date. So I don't know if there's any way we can explore that one of our other budget meetings becomes the evening meeting so that we don't have this conflict for board members. I don't know if that's a potential compromise of some sort, but I just throw that out there and see if that is a possibility.
Okay. Do we have a comment from staff?
Yes. Good afternoon. Deborah Auker, the Assistant General Manager of Finance and Management Services. So our budget schedule is a pretty tight schedule, and we have a practice, and I think even our operating guidelines state that we will present the first public hearing of the budget at the first meeting in December and adopt at the second meeting in December. We do present the budget to the PAC, the Park Advisory Committee, at their November meeting that's at 7 p.m. and we could advertise that more broadly so that we could get members of the public to know that that was happening. And then the Finance Committee in November, which is actually today on the same date, I believe it's November 25th, is a daytime meeting. They're both on the same Monday, so we wouldn't be able to change the Finance Committee to an evening meeting this year, but in the future we could contemplate that. So that's what our current schedule is. The staff probably wouldn't be prepared to present any earlier in November, so it would have to be an added meeting in December or changing a December meeting.
Director Corbett.
Could the second December meeting be the evening meeting, the evening of adoption? Because there are public comments at that meeting, are there not? Is that a possibility, just to try to recognize the conflict that some of our board members have?
Mm-hmm. That, I think staff would be able to accommodate that, yes.
If the board wants to do that, we can certainly look at that. It's just shifting the time, but we have to check and see if there are any other conflicts for that evening already. I don't know if there are or aren't, but it's what the board needs. We will figure out.
I'd like to make a suggestion, probably to be rejected, but I've been rejected before. It seems to me it would be a logical thing to start this meeting at the regular time and say that the budget will be discussed at 4 o'clock. We may be here till 7:30 with that, but at least people from both the daytime and the evening will have an opportunity to come. I will tell you that I have never known anyone in the Tri-Valley who has called me to ask for a night meeting about the budget. That doesn't mean they're not interested, but luckily I serve a district that they is considered very responsible. And we're pretty open in our budget process, but it strikes me, I don't know, would that give you a chance to be at part of the meeting? We could introduce the item and then we could come back to it at 4. So you essentially get 2 opportunities to comment on the budget. And we can all say that we will stay here till 7:30, 8 o'clock, so that people from wherever will have an opportunity to speak up on the budget. That's my compromise suggestion. You may react. Reaction, go for it.
Well, I think that's a very interesting suggestion. I haven't really thought about it that much. But I did want to also say one of the reasons that I had on the list, and that is that we do have night meetings. You know, we have night meetings for land use plans in vicinities where those plans are most affecting them. We have meetings we have a meeting in East County when we adopt the lighting and landscape district there, and so I'm not opposed to evening meetings, and I think that they are occasionally appropriate, and they are, you know, the board's always been willing to have some evening meetings, particularly on topics that are going to draw a lot of people. Now, I'd like to think there are a lot of people who would like to come and talk about the budget, but I have yet to see that, and we certainly didn't see it last year. Some people came, but they were, I think, encouraged to come. And I would like to see us not see this as a regular plan of an evening. And I could support Ann's compromise. I'm not sure about the rest of you.
I just really think it's appropriate to try to come up with something that will work for the greatest number of people. That's what we purport to be all about. And if that means I need to be here for a meeting that opens close to 1 o'clock, I can't promise starting on time if there's cake, to 7:30, 8 o'clock, and that we advertise that online in the newspapers and say, this is a budget meeting for the whole park district. We would invite you to come. If you need to speak early, we'll take your comments. If you need to speak 6, 7 o'clock, you'll have that chance. I can't think of a better way to reach the greatest audience. So Beverly says she can accept it. We have not talked about this. In fact, I was listening and thinking about it because it made sense to me to try to get the greatest number here. And staff, I'm sorry, but it would mean a very long, and I know you could probably take it though.
Staff is here to serve.
There we go. Good answer. Director Rosario.
Yeah, of the 2 amendments, proposed. I think the Director Corbett's is probably the most palatable because we'll have the full board. Yeah, we'll have the full board for both meetings, and at least one of those meetings is in the evening. So I would be happy with Director Corbett's proposal.
Losby?
Well, I've got a short memory. I've forgotten what Director Corbett's amendment was, but, once again, my only comment was I'll be happy to go along with this. Philosophically, I tend to agree with Director Lane. I don't know that if somebody's that passionate about the budget, they'll show up, or they'll write a letter, or they'll attend one of the meetings, or the PAC, or one of the two meetings we have, if they're that passionate about it. My goal is ideological, philosophical, whatever. I think that a board of a district that's this big has an obligation to meet with the people and have a meeting at 1 in the afternoon when I hesitate to call normal people are the majority of folks work during the day. And we're not exactly close to public transit. This isn't an easy meeting to get to. I would like to make it easier to speak to our board. I don't care when the meeting is, but if we're going to eliminate the one-night meeting that we've agreed to have, I sure wish we'd move it some other time, maybe a daylight savings time where it's still light at night. I don't care when we have an evening meeting. I just hope we have one.
Do you see
Or
something
two,
wrong
or
with-
three, or four.
with going from 1 to 8? So that we can get the budget in, they can have the early people can speak and the evening people can speak?
Sure, if we go to 8 o'clock, I guess, that.
Well, I would think that gives anybody from work a chance to get here. And if they've been interested in the budget, they have a chance to see it online. If they haven't had a chance to send it to us. To me, it's reasonable, but if that's not to the majority of the board, that's fine. Director Corbett.
Director Rossby, my suggestion was that since we have two sort of hearings on the budget, the first one that's, by our calendar and our rules occurs on the first Monday in December, and then we have the final approval of the budget, did I say Monday? Tuesday, sorry. It is on the third Tuesday of December that we have, so that we don't have a conflict with board members not being able to attend. We would have our evening meeting on the second meeting in December when we make our final approval on the budget. And although it's not, scheduled as the long hearing, there's still public comment period, so people could come in the evening and make their comments. And they'd be able to do that after they heard our discussion at the first meeting during the daytime. So they could come to the second meeting in December and we would have that one in the evening, sort of as a compromise, so that we have an evening meeting, but we still have an opportunity for the public to come to an evening meeting for those that work during the day.
Okay. Do we have anyone else with a comment? I can only say it's getting a little close to Christmas then, but who am I to say what people are going to be interested in at that stage? So I think we need to have the motion made officially, seconded.
So before you make that motion, just minor staff input, important to everyone. But the 17th is the last meeting of the year, and it is Director Dodson's last meeting.
And we're having a reception.
So that timing could impact that as far as people showing up for that, but also just the timing of it. So we were planning it wasn't going to be a secret party, but we were planning a celebration of Whitney's contributions.
More than cake. Okay, so what's, oh.
Yeah, we
So
could
what's
have.
the pleasure? Okay,
So I'll make a motion with regard to the meeting date in December, that instead of having the evening meeting on the 3rd, that we would have the evening meeting on the 17th of December, which is the second meeting in December, and that we make sure that, of course, we will have public hearings so that we have an opportunity for the public to speak at that time. So our
Okay.
evening meeting would be December 17th.
motion made by Director Corbett, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Rosario. Discussion?
Well, I'd be interested in General Manager Doyle's suggestion. If we did it in the front of the meeting, the celebration, could staff do it? That seems like
The staff will do what the board wishes, that we get paid to be here. That's just fine. It's an issue of just making sure we have a clear issue and a decision on the timing, and how, when exactly do we start the meeting, when do we have a celebration, and when do you go forward with the budget. I think from the staff point of view, it's just critical that is the vote on the budget. So we want to make sure that the first meeting on the budget has a robust discussion of any changes, so we can prepare those changes to bring it back for a final decision. The concern is not the staff time. The concern is if the public's showing up at the second meeting and making any changes you agree with to the budget, we're stuck writing that at the meeting. So that would be a concern, just to make sure. I just think,
we have a pretty smart public, and they can generally figure out when they want to talk to us about a change in the budget.
So noted.
It could work. I trust staff to be able to do that. Any further discussion? Anyone from the public on this item? Then I will call for the vote, and I think I'm going to say, raise your hand on this one. All those in favor? All those opposed? So be it. We have any, D, all of your others were answered?
Yes.
Madam President, I'm going to record the vote since we are audio. So the vote had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It had Director Coffey, Director Corbett, Director Lane, Director Waspy, and Director Rosario for the change, and Director Wieskamp against, and Director Dotson for the change. So the ayes have it, 6 ayes and 1 nay.
So I did have an item B on the minutes that I wanted to comment, and
What was that?
the problem is that it's a correction to the minutes, and it wasn't something that we did at the time, and so I don't know quite how to handle it, but I would like to record it, because we did have a really excellent discussion on the Reinhardt Redwood Park, but I think in the minutes we said this would be the only park named for a woman, and that's not really true. I mean, we have Sylvia McLaughlin East Shore State Park, which is a park that we manage, and we also have the Ted and Kathy Radke Martinez Shoreline. So we can put that wherever you want.
As a correction?
But I think it needs to be indicated in some minutes somewhere.
Okay.
Okay?
Everybody agree with that? Okay.
Thank you.
Somehow it got forgotten. Any other items on the consent calendar to discuss?
item E, yeah.
E? Okay, this is authorization to support the Oakland Athletics ballpark plans, including the San Francisco Bay Trail. Who would like to start the discussion?
So, President Wieskamp, I put a revised resolution on the dais that added a whereas reflecting that the Oakland Athletics ballpark project is subject to environmental review, and appropriate mitigation measures will be required to mitigate any adverse project impacts. So that was to reflect the comments that an EIR has to be done on this project. And then Director Corbett at the break made a suggestion to the title, which to amend the title to Resolution to Support the Oakland Athletics Ballpark Community Benefit Plans, including the San Francisco Bay Trail.
Okay. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Just with a question.
Okay. Watsby and then Lang. Close.
Well, so I've been lobbied by some folks, and it's my understanding that that is why environmental groups are not opposed to this, but are questioning this resolution that we're signing. They're suggesting that, yes, that state legislation was written to exclude, or that the Oakland Athletics would in fact have to go through a CEQA document, but it would limit the analysis and any review. So in other words, eliminating a good chunk of that. Does your whereas assume that that's the language? Or does your language, it kind of assumes that they're subject to review and appropriate mitigations will be required? Well, who? The state legislature, who've already passed on that one, in my opinion, or I've been told, or...
Let's talk to our government guy.
Yeah.
I'll ask Eric Fuller from Government Affairs to come up.
So the legislation actually calls for an exchange of the mitigation, so it does still require complete and full mitigation. It just doesn't have to be as close to on-site, so it can be done in some other location, which actually could end up benefiting the Coliseum site and the Park District's interests.
Director Corbett?
I just want to add, in reviewing the legislation too, that it wasn't legislation to waive the CEQA process, but to allow for a fast track in the courts if there was a requirement for hearings, that this measure would have a chance to move quickly and have priority. So it was fast track legislation as well.
But, pardon me, oh, may I?
Of course,
But
Director.
so it would be fast-tracked in the courts, but not...
No, it
would
does
be-
not waive CEQA.
Face the same scrutiny
It
that any other
does
CEQA
not waive
document.
CEQA, and I know that Director Coffey is going to weigh in on this too. People just wanted to make it clear. There was sort of, well, I'll let Director Coffey speak to this, because there was sort of a presumption that we had approved the project, which of course we have no authority to do.
Well, I don't think we've got that power,
Right?
do we?
So anyway, that's why this clarification.
Director Coffey, did you have a comment or not?
I guess I do.
Well, I'm not assigning it to you, but I'm giving you the opportunity.
Director, I've been told I have a comment, and I respect my leadership, folks. So I received 3 objections from our Environmental Coalition representative from the Sierra Club, and they were principally that the resolution looked like it was giving carte blanche support to the existing ballpark plans and Coliseum site redevelopment plans. 2, that the resolution appeared to condone at least the so-called legislative runaround CEQA, which I think Director Corbett has correctly pointed out isn't exactly what was going on. And 3, that there are some economic justice, social justice issues surrounding commercial development at the existing Coliseum site, and whether in fact that is a good thing for the neighborhoods in the city of Oakland impacted. So my response to that was 2 and 3 were beyond our purview. We are past whatever the legislature has done, and we aren't in a position to approve or disapprove of what the legislature has done with the CEQA process on this project, and so we're not, I rejected the concept that this resolution is somehow reflective of what the legislature did, and that we're not the, as Director Corbett points out, we're not a land use regulatory agency that can suggest a resolution of neighborhood issues at the existing site. So I didn't think there was a role for us in this resolution for that. I did accept the suggestion that the resolution as originally drafted appeared to be a carte blanche approval of the existing project as it was presented to us. So I did suggest some language that acknowledges that, well, of course, we understand that there's going to be regulatory input from the agencies involved in the land use approval and CEQA process, public input, and there would be appropriate environmental mitigations, and that our primary interest in this was to be at the table, so to speak, and advocate for those environmental mitigations that involve creating greater access to parks and trails for our constituents. And that was the one area where I thought we should perhaps respond to the objections was with that language, and council has incorporated it very well. And so I'm supportive of the resolution as amended.
Okay, resolution that you have in front of you. Yes, General Manager.
General Manager, just a couple of comments. Obviously, you do have a staff that pays attention to these issues, particularly land use issues and developments. And to remind everybody, this includes both the port property for the new stadium as well as the redevelopment of the Coliseum property. Two major projects, two areas that are completely developed. They're not natural. They're pavement and buildings and port facilities. So we did look at that and say, well, we have some direct nexus to this. One is the continued frustration over getting a really good bay trail on the Oakland shoreline. And we believe that being at the table, they say being at the table is better than being on the menu. And in this case, we would like to be at the table to push for better, certainly underserved community access to their own shoreline, which they don't have now because the 880 freeway is a major impediment to getting to Oakland shoreline. And we believe that that is one of the things that any ballpark in downtown Oakland will have to address, and we think we can benefit from that. We have had a long-term goal of getting from Lake Merritt down to the Bay Trail. It is not directly our project, but it has been a project with Oakland that we have supported. And finally, we have had a proposal in the Coliseum complex to restore a very polluted creek area that's subject to industrial runoff and the parking lot and everything. And what we've seen as a very schematic plan, which I'm sure will change, is a complete restoration of the creek with about 50% of the Coliseum becoming open space and habitat, which in no way is it now, except for maybe gulls on the weekend when nobody's there. So I think the environmental benefits are there, and I think the Park District not only has an opportunity but an obligation to guide some of those things that have nothing to do with baseball. They certainly have a lot to do with development, but they don't have anything to do with baseball. And I think particularly we are very interested in seeing better access to Martin Luther King shoreline, which is very constrained. It's very difficult to get on streets, to get people who just live within a mile away to get there. And I think one of the biggest challenges to both of those sites is pedestrian circulation. BART, how do you get from there to either, you've got the BART station literally at the Coliseum complex, so what an opportunity to get people from BART down to our shoreline without getting in a car. So I want to be candid about what we see as opportunities. I just think we need to get there early and often to be able to influence any of these designs, because it's going to be a juggernaut of economics, not of environmental issues. But I do remind everybody, including our good environmental friends, that these are both highly developed industrial sites. I call the Coliseum an industrial site because it's mainly a giant parking lot with the two buildings. So just wanted the board to understand we have really looked at this, and I would like to make sure that the staff has board support to dedicate some time to engage, because this is not going to be a simple process or a light-handed process. We're going to have to go to a lot of meetings. Thank you.
Okay. Director Lane, I think you had a question or comment.
Yeah, I did have a question, and you know, I'm not on legislative committee, but I was looking at the reference to the BCDC, and I would like to know if they have reviewed this proposal for the ballpark and have said that it is compatible with the bay, or if this references something that will be a review in the future.
It's my understanding that they have been looking at it and will fully review it in the future, but I don't think there's been an approval. I think the general manager alluded to the fact that this is the beginning of a very long process. The legislation with the lands transfer does accommodate some of BCDC's concerns, but I don't believe there's been a final approval on that.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, I'm very confident that a lot of this is very preliminary. I do not. I think there's been conversation with BCDC, but there's been I believe, no formal review. The first formal review will be before the Planning Commission in Oakland and City Council, before anything else. And there are still issues very much to get resolved there.
You're not there yet. Okay, are we satisfied with the resolution? So we can add that as acceptable in the consent calendar. Is there any other item anyone would like to bring up or to talk about? Earlier there was P. Do you still wish to talk about that directly?
If I can suggest we just do a separate vote
On this one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that then.
And to clarify, the resolution is the red line that's on the dais, and we're adding to the title, the Oakland Athletics Ballpark Community Benefit Plans, including the.
That is something that's not on the resolution. Okay, did everybody hear that?
Yes.
I'll make the motion
Okay.
to support the resolution to support the Oakland Athletic Ballpark Community Benefit Plans, including the San Francisco Bay Trail.
Second?
I'll second.
Director Rosario seconds. Discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then, I think the other.
May I ask one more on S?
Sure.
If I may, I apologize.
Which one?
Item S,
S?
the authorization to apply for California Office of Emergency Services for funds from Federal Emergency Management Agency for pre-disaster fuel management, and it's up in Tilden and Claremont, and it's I'm totally in favor of this. I'm really happy that we have the opportunity to get these funds, and FEMA's been really great to us. I'm wondering how I can explain to my constituency why it's going to Tilden and Wildcat. I think I know the answer. I think it's because of the 25% match, and I think it's because of the great work we did on Measure FF. But I'd like a confirmation on that. Or because it's a priority in the war rump, I'm guessing.
Hello, Lisa Baldinger, Acting Grants Manager, here to confirm that it is because of the 25 match and because we are prepared to do work out there at this time.
Okay, it's shovel ready and it's part of the war rump.
Correct.
Thank you, I'll quote you.
Wow. Okay, the other item, Director Lane wished to comment on P. No, that was P. You're fine? She's fine. All right. Let's go for the balance of the consent calendar.
Okay, I move we adopt the consent calendar with the exception of C, on which we've already voted, and E, on which we have
Change language.
already voted
Voted.
with change language.
Okay.
Second.
Lane makes motion. Second.
Second.
Corbett. All right. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're through the consent calendar. Not bad, not bad. Okay. We're next on to Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development Division. And this is the authorization to execute a funding agreement with John Muir Land Trust for a long sought project, and that is the Almond Ranch property. Thank you. Staff?
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board. Mike Reeves, Chief of Land Acquisition. I am pleased to present this next item. That is a wonderful opportunity to preserve land in this region. The 281-acre Almond Ranch, which is perched along Franklin Ridge south of Martinez, has been a priority of land conservationists for decades, and has been remarked by our general manager, Robert Doyle. Few places have been discussed over the years as being so necessary for conservation. Not too long ago, John Muir Land Trust was successful in getting this privately owned cattle ranch under contract. And in April of last year, the Land Trust launched a fundraising campaign that was seeded by a $1 million commitment from the East Bay Regional Park District. This past August, the Land Trust was awarded a $2 million grant from the State Wildlife Conservation Board. And when combined with the Park District's funding commitment, the Land Trust is ready to move forward and complete its acquisition of the ranch. And we have here today Linus Uckel, who's the Executive Director with John Muir Land Trust. And after the presentation, I'd like to invite him up to make some remarks about this land conservation opportunity. But before I hand it over to Sarah Reek to present on this item, I do need to make a correction to the staff report. As noted, the numbers as noted indicate that the purchase price for the property is $4 million. In fact, that is the fundraising goal for John Muir Land Trust for this project. It includes within that $4 million the purchase price of the property, which is $2,954,000. And then, as I indicated, the Wildlife Conservation Board has awarded a grant of $2 million. The balance then of the purchase price being $954,000, and the amount of the request by the Land Trust of the Park District, and the amount that the board would consider appropriating in today's action. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Sarah to present on this item.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Mike. I'm not sure that I have much left to say. You may have stolen my thunder, but I'll give it a shot. So good afternoon, President Wieskamp, members of the board. I am Sarah Reek of the Land Acquisition Department. I'm pleased to be here today to present this exciting partnership opportunity. As Mike mentioned, Almond Ranch is a 281-acre privately owned cattle ranch that has been a top conservation priority of the Park District and the John Muir Land Trust for decades, and the Park District is more than happy to assist John Muir Land Trust in its acquisition of the property by providing the lead commitment of $954,000 towards its $2,954,000 purchase price. Under the terms of the proposed funding agreement before you today, the Park District will acquire a conservation easement over the property and a trail easement for the development and operation of a future segment of the Bay Area Ridge Trail. John Muir Land Trust will obtain fee title to the property and have full responsibility for management of the property subject to the conservation easement. Let's start by orienting ourselves. The Almond Ranch property shown here on this map in orange is located in unincorporated Contra Costa County, southwest of the city of Martinez, north of Briones Regional Park, and south of Carquinez Strait Regional Shoreline. And you can see here, this is Highway 4 that runs generally east to west, and down here is Alhambra Valley Road that runs generally east to west to help orient you. The Almond Ranch property outlined in orange here is situated at the heart of several properties previously preserved by the John Muir Land Trust: Guston Ranch, Dutra Ranch, Sky Ranch, Stonehurst, West Hills Farm, and Mount Wanda that's adjacent to John Muir National Historic Site. This slide shows the location of previously acquired segments of the Bay Area Ridge Trail on all four sides of the property. You can see that the Almond Ranch property provides the opportunity to link these segments together in various directions. Pardon me. This is the feeder, and again, here we go. Feeder trail number 1. This is more known as the Vaca Creek Trail, but it's part of the Bay Area Ridge Trail, so you have opportunities to go north, south, east, and west. John Muir Land Trust's campaign to save the Almond Ranch property was launched with the first commitment by the Park District of $1 million of Measure WW acquisition funds from the Bay Area Ridge Trail allocation area towards the $2,954,000 purchase price. Subsequently, John Muir Land Trust was awarded a $2 million grant from the State Wildlife Conservation Board. Therefore, the Park District will contribute the remaining funding gap of $954,000. Preservation of the Almond Ranch property by John Muir Land Trust protects the ridgeline and the property from development, thereby protecting habitat, clean water, and preserving the viewshed. It preserves an intact wildlife corridor along Franklin Ridge that supports native and special status species, and it closes an important gap in the Bay Area Ridge Trail for recreation. Let's move on to some photos now. This photo is looking northeast over eastern Martinez and northern Concord. The property contains grassland dotted with scrub plant communities and valleys of oak and bay woodlands. There are several stock ponds on the property and seeps, and the headwaters of Strensel Creek are also located on the property. The highest peak on the property is 800 feet, and on a good day you can see the San Francisco Bay, the Delta, Mount Diablo, and even the Sierras. Primary access to the property is off of a private road in the Stonehurst subdivision, which is accessed off of Alhambra Valley Road. This photo is facing east over Mount Wanda, and if you look closely, you can actually see the windmills of Solano County out here in the background.
And if I may, just a clarification that the Mount Wanda property is actually national park, owned by National Parks.
Yes, it is. Thank you. This photo was taken from the ridge looking southeast. The Almond Ranch property is in the foreground, followed by the Alhambra Hills ridgeline, the cities of Pleasant Hill and Walnut Creek, the foothills of Mount Diablo, and Mount Diablo itself. Here is a lovely sunset photo in the west, and a very lush, beautiful oak tree. Might be my favorite photo. This is one of the 3 wood frame agricultural structures found on the property. This one nestled within the oaks in the northeastern portion of the property.
It's not going to shelter much.
Here's a photo of a non-operational but still very charming windmill, and that's Mount Diablo in the backdrop, of course. And this is a photo of a ranch road on the property that could potentially become part of the Bay Area Ridge Trail. The action before you today includes a request for the transfer and appropriation of Measure WW funds in the amount of $964,000. $954,000 would be for the Park District's purchase price portion and $10,000 for staff time. Thank you for your time and consideration, and at this time I'll turn it back over to Mike Reeves. Thank you.
Much.
You're welcome.
Sarah, you can stay up here at the podium.
Whoever took the photos, good job.
I wish I could take credit, but I can't.
Before we open it up to questions from the board, I'd like to invite Linus Uckel, Executive Director of the John Muir Land Trust, to come up and make a few remarks regarding this opportunity.
Please come forward.
Thank you, President Wieskamp and members of the board. I'm here on behalf of the John Muir Land Trust Board of Directors. Again, without presuming your subsequent action, it's mostly at this point to say thank you. I'd start by quoting the great Ted Radosevich with a somewhat impolitic comment, but it's meant with respect and actually to imply the great patience that associates to this property, and that is that parks are forever, and that's a good thing because sometimes it takes us forever to get anything done. And it really does go to the notion of patience and forbearance with this property. It's 30 years in the making. Many people, if I crawl out on this limb, a lot of people think of life as an arena. I think of it, and I think we should be thinking of it more as a forum. And in that regard, it's much more about collaboration. And this is very much the hallmark of collaboration. It goes back to the founders of the Land Trust, to Tina Pat as the founding executive director, and to Bob Doyle, General Manager Doyle, I should say. Not so much with the Land Trust, but with his eye on the Franklin Ridge and the notion of that being an important place to have the Park District eyes on and to preserve in perpetuity that might have otherwise fallen between the cracks. And to Ted Radke previous to the succession of Cullen Coffey in this district, or this ward of the East Bay Regional Park District, and that constant support and moving forward over decades, and all of the board members of the John Muir Land Trust, which started as Martinez Regional Land Trust, Muir Heritage Land Trust, John Muir Land Trust. I think that's our name forevermore, but who knows? With that said, it really is this wonderful collaboration between so many people that have delivered this property, and it goes to this notion of forbearance and perpetuity, and we are just so grateful to your support. We could not do it without this kind of partnering from the Park District, and certainly follow your lead with respect to vision in regard to the Franklin Ridge and getting this one done. So I could go on. I've got a list of names here to thank, and I just want to make sure that I do recognize Board of Directors, and again, Colin, who really led the charge on this in new to office and really got it very quickly. The next succession of staff, Dr. Alvarez and Christina Kelchner, so many people that have been very supportive as we move forward. And then Sean Dugan with respect to trails. And you guys know all these folks and get to interact with them all the time. Not so much always the case for us. So it's very special when folks are out there and doing this sort of work. And then, of course, the next wave, again, over 30 years, Mike Reeves, who's really done good and great work on helping us get this across the finish line, along with Sarah. I've been working with them for the last few weeks and before to make sure that this happens. So we're just really grateful to the continuity of this over time, and very grateful to your hopeful outcome of approval of this funding. So I'll leave you with that, and just very much our thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I appreciate your optimism.
President Wieskamp, if I may, Carol Victor, District Council. I do want to make, as Michael Reeves pointed out, there were some corrections to the numbers in the resolution. So the second whereas in the resolution, in place of $4 million, it should be $2,954,000. And then on the be it further resolved, the board authorizes the transfer and appropriation of $994,000 from the project account. Yes, and with those changes, the resolution would.
Those changes are made.
Let me step in on that. I believe the board resolution amount should read 964,000. 54. Which includes, I think that was a carryover from the staff report as it currently reads.
Let's come up with the right number.
Yes.
At 954,000?
So the amount of the donation to the contribution, thank you. The contribution is 954,000. An additional 10,000 for Park District staff time on this project for a total of 964.
Separate numbers be at that resolution?
It's to, at the be it resolved that the board authorizes the transfer and appropriation of $964,000?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the only number? We don't have to give staff time in that resolution?
The number's there.
That incorporates the staff time.
We are good. Everybody's happy with 954.
64.
No. And so we're changing two numbers, and both of them are 964. Is that correct? The whereas and the resolved?
The whereas is what the purchase price was, and so it's whereas the property may be purchased for $2,954,000. It's appraised fair market value.
All right, so we have three numbers that we are altering.
Just give them all one more time.
In the resolution.
Sure. Director Lane, it's two numbers. In the second whereas, the property may be purchased for $2,954,000. And then in the first, be it further resolved that the board authorizes the transfer and appropriation of $964,000 from the project account. Those are the two.
We got the numbers? He's
Well,
nodding yes.
I'm
so he's
sorry.
looking good.
I think there should be three numbers addressed, changed in the resolution, right? Three. The purchase price should be changed?
Under the second whereas, the purchase price currently says $4 million, and that should reflect the correct number of $2,954,000.
All right, and then the fourth whereas says the district will provide
982,000.
And that should read 954,000.
That should say 54,000. And then be it resolved should say 64,000.
Correct. That includes the $10,000 in staff
Okay,
time.
so that's 3 numbers in this resolution. Okay.
You never thought it would be this hard just to get the right number.
Okay,
Just
relax.
From the general manager, I was going to ask Linus if he wanted us just to postpone this till we got it straight. But I will comment, and the board, probably a board member is going to comment anyway, but I can't tell you how many times the district has committed a number, and if that number changes at all, it's a wrestling match. So I want to compliment the Land Trust and Linus for being real honest about those numbers and saving us a little bit of money for the public, and the public should know that. So, thank you.
All right, now we have members. I think Colin really has been at that end very pleased. So let's let him start, and then we'll come to you, Dee.
Okay.
Do I
so-
read that correctly, Colin?
Sure you do. Thank you. So we've all raved over this property and its importance for, I guess it's been now 2 years since the campaign was started, just about. And so I won't go back and do that. And we've also raved about this truly unique and special partnership that the Park District has with the John Muir Land Trust and its staff. This again is indicative of that great partnership and how successful it can be. So that's done, and now I want to get to Linus and our staff for your next magic trick, because here it is. What's fantastic and fun about this? Could you put up Sarah the slide that had the trails highlighted?
Yes.
Back a few. There.
So this one is they're highlighted in.
Yeah, there, that's the one. That's the one. So what's going to happen, Linus, when the opening day of Almond Ranch, you're going to have the ranch road at the top of Mount Wanda, which currently ends at the no trespassing sign at the gate entry to Almond Ranch. You're going to open that wide.
May 2nd. It's very important that you're there. We've already booked the orchestra. May 2nd.
So with that understanding, a whole bunch of us are going to be standing there. And if you look at this, and this is what's exciting, is eventually you hook up with Sky Ranch through this property and down south toward Briones. So my question to Linus is how are we going to end up connecting Sky Ranch, given that Ranch Road veers up north into another property? So that in May, maybe, or maybe it not. So I'm kind of curious about the timing of this as we're standing there revved up to traverse Almond in May. How we're going to get to Sky Ranch. Once we're at Sky Ranch, I'm interested in from Sean, and this is all just very quick nutshell stuff. I understand we could have a full presentation on it, but is Feeder Trail 1 going to be done? Is, there's been money allocated to restore Feeder Trail number 1 for the Bay Area Ridge Trail portion that's indicated on this map going northeast to southwest. And then finally, when we run through the gate and head down south toward Briones, there's a portion where Vaca Creek Trail just ends in the middle of Stonehurst. And then there's this short distance between the border of Almond down into Stonehurst. Is that going to be ready to go?
I'd like to invite Linus back up to the podium to speak on the majority of those questions regarding how that property would link. And we also have our Trails Development Program Manager, Sean Dugan.
Well, would you like me to address it just so that you're not held liable for anything? But feel free. I mean, we expect that we will cut a trail along the very northern boundary of the property line until at some subsequent event we're able to establish other access points. So ultimately there may be more than one alignment, which is why we're careful not to say final alignment of the Bay Area Ridge Trail will be aligned on May 2nd. But we will have a connection, we will have a path, a multi-use trail available for the public right away. But there's an expansive enterprise, I think, in our future towards even better alignment that way. And then there is an easement that the Park District perfected many years ago, again, with just great vision as to how Vaca Creek Trail connects down. And I think that can also be engineered effectively for that opening. And then feeder trail, I see work being done on that out there right now. So we compliments, hats off again to Park District for being so enterprising in moving forward on that. And we expect there are other really strategic connections further out along the ridge, and we continue to have those conversations as well. And again, it's been great to coordinate some of this and other projects with Sean Dugan and his staff. They've really big vision of the whole region.
Thank you. So that's what's so exciting. There's a lot of money invested here, and I just wanted the board to get a flavor for what all is going on there with these trail connections. And I'm also kind of advocating to folks that we get on those trail connections.
I think he wants those trail connections. Yeah. I think he does. Director Lane, I think you had a question, comment?
I wondered if Sean Dugan might like to
Sean?
make some comments.
Since you are here, would you please come forward? Somebody has a question or comment, if you have one.
So I don't really have anything to add to what Lina said. It's, again, sorry, Sean Dugan, Trails Development Program Manager. These projects are one piece at a time, and this is a very big piece. But unfortunately, sometimes we're just not completed, so. I think we have some work to do. So
I appreciate, we just got through a great trails workshop, and you showed us a lot of trails that are in the process, but just make sure these are in there, I think is what the gentleman on the end is saying, so that we can hopefully work with the Land Trust and accomplish a connection that will keep him and his constituents happy. How's that? I'm sure you'll work on it.
Yeah, I'm happy to work with Linus as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Any other questions? I'm sorry, Director Rosario.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow the money all the way to the end, going to the budget change form. That number there is 982,000. Is that correct?
That was the one that was changed.
Sarah Reed, Land Acquisition Department. It's correct that that's what it currently states. That will need to be changed. So,
954?
This is pre the adjustment in the resolution today.
Okay.
So that will be changed to reflect the board's action today in the resolution,
Resolution is-
of which I'm not repeating that number again.
Don't you dare. We thought we had
964.
everybody happy with the
Okay.
resolution.
I just wanted to make sure that was followed to the end. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to know if anyone would like to make the resolution on this. Are we ready? I think we are. Do we have anything further? I think there's somebody.
I move to approve the resolution authorization to execute a funding agreement with John Muir Land Trust for the acquisition of the Almond Ranch property, accept a conservation easement and a recreational trail and emergency vehicle and maintenance access easement, and the transfer and appropriate funds for us to support the acquisition.
Director Dodson, would you like to second that motion? I think I heard a second from Director Dodson. Any discussion? All of those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations. Partnerships are good. And I'm glad you brought up two Teds, because they both had an awful lot to getting us to this point. So thank you so much for being, I think a little applause. And thank you, staff. Takes a lot of people to accomplish things. The next item is an authorization to amend a contract with Custa Engineering Corporation for engineering, landscape architecture, and permitting support services, and authorization to amend a contract with Go Native Incorporated for vegetation management services for the Coyote Hills Restoration and Public Access. This is at Coyote Hills Regional Park. And there's Chris.
Good afternoon, President Wieskamp, members of the board, Chris Barton, Environmental Programs Manager. I I'm the project manager for the Coyote Hills Restoration and Public Access Project, and we're ready to go into the next steps for this project. So I have a brief presentation here to talk about the implementation phase. So this action involves amending 2 existing consultant contracts so we could proceed to the next stage. Coyote Hills is located in Alameda County, southern part of the Park District, south of Alameda Creek. Here are the hills, Coyote Hills. The intervening area between the Patterson property shown in purple and the hills is owned by Alameda County Flood Control District, and here's Alameda Creek. The park fronts Paseo Padre. The main entrance is at Patterson Ranch Road. Dumbarton Quarry is also shown here on the map, a future Park District facility, separate project. So over the past 2.5 years, staff concluded a planning process and the board approved a land use plan amendment back in September of this year. We're now ready to proceed into developing plans to put the initial phases of the project out to bid and to permit the project and to prepare the site for construction. Staff is envisioning this to be potentially a 2-phase project and I'll go over those 2 phases. I have a few slides to show how the project could be implemented, but it's about a 5-year process that we're looking at from start to completion. So just as a reminder, this is a multiple benefit project. One of the main benefits is to preserve urban agriculture and also to interpret that as we develop out the park. Also to provide more public access into Coyote Hills and to improve existing public access, and also to restore some high-value habitat within the park. And these are co-equal goals, and the consensus that we reached through the planning process took quite a bit of time, and it's a great plan. So looking at the adopted land use plan, just as a refresher here, so here we have Paseo Padre Parkway where the project and the park now fronts. The main entrance into the park here, Patterson Ranch Road. The land use plan calls mostly for a natural unit, so most of the park will be undeveloped and restored. Approximately 11% of the project will be developed with park facilities such as trails, parking, and there are also some existing facilities that are included in that 11% of developed area. So here, most of the developed area is within this salmon-colored rectangle here. Parking, including parking, several overlooks are within the plan area. Here's another view of the plan, an oblique view of the project area. And this is zooming in on what would likely be the first phase of the project, is to focus on the restoration and public access components of the project north of Patterson Ranch Road. So here is the location of where parking would be primarily located, with trail connections leading through the property up to connect to Alameda Creek Trail, and then to head south to eventually connect to Dumbarton Quarry. And during the planning process, there was an amendment to the plan, and staff has worked on implementing this amendment so that it's reflected in the final land use plan. So the first adjustment is, number 1, to remove the Oak Trail spur and viewing platform. And then number 2 is to shift the parking lot west and south. And both of these changes are considerations to minimize potential impacts from public access to sensitive habitat areas. And so the adjustment calls for pulling these features back, so shifting this overlook closer to the existing trail, or sorry, to the future planned trail here, and then shifting the parking further away from Patterson Slough. And then also to consider removing a spur lookout trail that's an existing road that runs along Patterson Slough. And this graphic shows the adjustment. So the first one shows how this overlook has been shifted back here. The spur no longer exists going into the slough area. And then number two, and maybe I can go back and forth here so you can see the change. So number two is to shift the parking lot over. So it goes from being about a 300-foot distance from the slough to over 1,000 feet with this adjustment. And then also you can see here that the buffer from Patterson Ranch Road has also decreased. So let me again go back and forth on the slide. So this was the original, what the board initially looked at. So there's quite a bit of buffer here, so we were able to shift the parking lot closer to Patterson Ranch Road and get it further away from the slough. So these are the changes. Staff is showing on this graphic that the overlook will remain, and this is for planning purposes. This is something that the board could ultimately look at as we proceed with the plan and it develops to a full bid package. The second phase of the project, we're envisioning that it would include all of the improvements south of Patterson Ranch Road. So it would include the trails that are planned near the agricultural area, and then also the frontage improvements that we're looking at making. So currently there's a gravel lot along Paseo Padre Parkway. So one key feature of the project is to have a nice park entrance along Paseo Padre Parkway, which is a scenic roadway. So we would be softening the frontage by restoring the gravel lot into natural habitat with trees planted, and then also having a 20-car parking lot installed that serves a farm stand. Staff has been working through the planning phases on securing funding, so I'm happy to report we have two good-sized grants, one for $800,000 from Prop 68 River Parkways, and also San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority funds in the amount of $450,000. And there's a lot of potential for grants on this project, so over the next year, as we're working on developing the bid package, we will be working on securing grants. So this project will attract transportation dollars, it'll attract habitat restoration dollars, and also climate readiness types of dollars. I look forward to reporting we have more money next time I come and to report to you. So this afternoon there are there's one resolution, two actions here. One is to amend the contract with Cuesta Engineering, and we do have Jeff Peters here, who is our workhorse for the project. So this will, their scope of work will include putting together, basically taking this concept drawing and making it ready to put out to bid, and then also working on local entitlements to work with the city of Fremont to get our approvals with them, and then to work on any regulatory permits that we need for the project, and also to prepare the site. There's some soil testing and other types of actions that we need to take. The second contract is with Go Native, and they're also a firm who's been working at this site. They're one of our main consultants who worked on the habitat restoration planning part of the land use plan. So they will continue with vegetation management at the site, and also to maintain some vegetation test plots that we've been studying over the past year. And these test plots were established to understand how different types of native seeds will respond, and also some plants will respond to different areas of the site. Some areas of the site are more wet, some are more dry, and also to see which trees tend to like the site better. And we're doing this before we scale up the project, because it is a big project to scale up. So Go Native will help us with that part of the project. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Director Lane?
Yeah, I had a question about where Go Native is working on the property. Are they doing various plots sort of scattered around, or is there a particular area?
There are currently 5 test plots that are established. Let's see. Well, there's one on the east side of Patterson Slough, and then there's one on the west side of Patterson Slough, which tend to be wetter areas. There's also one in the upland area here from Patterson Slough and one further up in the upland area from Patterson Slough. And then we also have I guess we have 6 test plots, and we have 2 over here in the western wetland areas. So their scope of work is going to include our entire project site, minus the Alameda County flood control area, south of the P line, or line P, right here that runs through here. So this area of the project, we will not be focusing any of our vegetation management efforts on. We'll be coordinating with flood control, but we're going to focus all of our efforts north of the line P, Ardenwood Creek.
So the reason they're scattered around is so you can see what will grow best in that particular soil?
Correct.
And wetness.
Yeah, there's a lot of variability there, and we want to see, we don't want to spend $100,000 on a seed type and find out that they didn't like it there to begin with.
That's a good idea.
I think it shows good thinking, yes. Discussion or comments from anyone? Director Corbett.
So Chris, looks good. I just wanted to ask though, I thought that you might have said that as you were describing the Patterson Slough part of the project, which we discussed at length earlier, that one of the overlooks was going to remain, but it was going to be pulled back at the one, number one.
Yeah, let me rewind
right
here.
I thought
Oops,
that
other
one
way.
was going to go away, and that one of the other ones was remaining, and the other one was optional, was to be discussed, I should say.
Correct. The board, Director Corbett, if you recall, the board made kind of a last minute, well, not a last minute, but made a change to the resolution that was proposed. And what it did was, number one is to pull back this overlook to get it out of the future restored area, so pull it back in this direction. So here you could see how we pulled it back. So this is the revised plan.
Yes.
And then the second change, the parking was originally located at this spot closer to the old house there, and then it was shifted over. So this is the revised plan. And then the third change, and there was a lot of discussion about this one, is whether or not this spur trail would remain or would it be removed. The ultimate language that was approved was to consider, for staff to consider removing that overlook. And for planning purposes, staff is recommending that we keep this in the plan because as we're developing the site, it's just much easier for us to keep it in there rather than to add it back later.
Okay, so for me, it's just a matter of language that I didn't understand. So I see up there that the viewing platform is removed at 1, but there still is an overlook with a pulled back trail. Got it. I got it.
Okay, sorry if I misunderstood
No.
your question.
I got it exactly. I understand now. Thank you.
Okay.
And I want to add that I really like that. I like the overlook there, and so I'm pleased you're leaving it in.
Without the platform.
Any other comments? Okay. Well, Chris, I think you've done an outstanding job as always. You're very patient, and I think you study things very well. I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I think you listen to, we all listen to people who care very much about Coyote Hills and what happens there. So if it's okay with everyone, I would like to move these contracts forward with this resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Wasby is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, and get it done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
If I may make a comment, I think the board should be aware that there are 3 huge projects going on at Coyote Hills. Nothing in its history that reflects this kind of work. So we have the project that Chris just described. We have the Dumbarton Quarry,
Quarry.
well on its way.
Oh, thank you.
And we also have, moving forward, the plan for the alternatives for the interpretive center.
Yeah.
This is a remarkable investment, and when we started working on these projects, we never realized that Coyote Hills would become so popular, and it has.
It is.
So we started working on some of these projects before we realized how diverse that use would be, and it's really great. So this is all in total, and we will give you that number all in total one of these times, because we've got three different
my.
projects.
Are we ready
It's
for
a
that number?
huge, not today, but it's a huge investment in Coyote Hills and in public use. It's just really, and restoration. It's really, really quite something.
Well, it's a much appreciated park, and it deserves all of these projects to move forward, and I think everybody's excited about it. I know at the Ohlone Gathering, the staff was very excited talking about the future visitor center, and certainly I think that's one that needs replacing. Somebody might just.
You know, I appreciate your showing that the trail will start around Patterson Ranch Road and then get up to Alameda Creek Trail, because I think that will be a really important route, particularly for people who want to do a loop. You know, they can do this and go down, busy around, come back, and it'll be such a variety of habitats to look at and experiences to have. So I think that's a really important trail link.
Guys, did we take a vote? We did? All right, we're good. Then we will move on to C. Authorization to award a construction contract to Carone and Company and amend the contract for services with BKF Engineers Incorporated for design support during construction of the San Francisco Bay Trail at Lone Tree Point. And there is Sean again. Sean.
Thank you, President Wieskamp, members of the board. Sean Dugan, Trails Development Program Manager. A good night at Lone Tree Point before you. I actually took that with my iPhone, of all things.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a good day to be out there. So today, for the Lone Tree, speaking of Lone Tree Point, before you, I'm requesting authorization to award a construction contract to Carone and Company out of Concord, California, the lowest responsible bidder identified for the construction of the San Francisco Bay Trail at Lone Tree Point, in the amount of $2,508,000, as well as to amend the contract and extend the contract with BKF Engineers who designed this project. As the engineer of record, we require their services during construction to respond to any changes or requests for information, et cetera. And they also provided some support during the bidding period. And that's for an amount not to exceed $78,754. So what I'll show you today is an overview of the Bay Trail in San Pablo Bay real quickly, and then I'll describe the project and the current design plans, talk about the bidding process, and go over the budget and then the schedule. So if you look at San Pablo Bay Regional Shoreline, a place that I have been spending a lot of time in over the last 10 years, you can see from the bottom left to the top right, the Bay Trail gaps in orange, and the Bay Trail segments in green are the segments completed. So down in the bottom, Richmond's moving forward with the Goodrich Avenue, 0.3 miles to Dotson Family Marsh from the Richmond Parkway. They received a Contra Costa County Transportation Authority a Measure J grant to move that forward. Then we have a gap north of that, Point Pinole to Wilson Point. It's one of the last remaining gaps once we complete the project that I'm presenting on today. And then of course, Pinole Shores to Bayfront Park we completed last year. And Hercules is still raising funding to build their intermodal transit station, which will also close a very small segment left in Hercules. And then north of that, we have the Lone Tree Point project that we're talking about today. It's another 0.5 mile segment that will link Rodeo to Hercules. And then real quickly, to the north of that, along San Pablo Avenue, this county has completed a complete streets study of that, which is proposing to take a lane away from that road, reconfigure it, and put the Bay Trail along the side of San Pablo Avenue there. And that has yet to move forward. And there we go. So for this project, what this will do is close a 2,600-foot gap, about a half a mile, located between Victoria by the Bay down to the south and Hercules to the community of Rodeo through our staging area there, the Lone Tree Point staging area. It will include also a 200-foot bridge in blue there in the middle to span the wetland and not impact it, and also installation of a restroom facility in the staging area and some other staging area improvements, including a accessible parking space. In yellow, there's also some striping and repaving of our entrance into the shoreline segment of this property. I'll refer to the area that we're building the trail in as the upland portion. And the shoreline property, we're connecting to that with a I'll call it a spur trail demarcation, really. And installation of a security fence along our property and the Union Pacific Railroad's property, which there's currently none at the moment. And last but not least, we're planting 30 coast live oak trees throughout the site. So we'll talk about first my clickers. Okay, we'll talk first about the, I'll go through some of the project elements so that you're very aware of what we're doing. The 200-foot bridge over the wetland here is proposed to be a Corten steel truss bridge with a concrete deck. This is a very long bridge, so it will likely come in two pieces. The abutments and the bridge itself and the parameters have been set forth for the bridge, but it has not been final designed. So what we're calling this is a design build bridge, and that once we award this contract, then the contractor will work with the bridge fabricator who makes this bridge as a kit to make sure that all the numbers are right, that it will fit, that it'll work. And then they'll deliver it to the site. This has caused could cause a little bit of a delay in the construction, in that procuring the steel for the bridge and the delivery of it and the fabrication of it, we've been told could take several months. I'm crossing my fingers that it's not over 6 months. But that's the reality of the situation. The other key point to note is that we're not doing anything else on the site until this bridge is put in place, because it will need 2 large cranes to drop in the 200-foot sections. And whatever we build before that would get trampled or driven over or whatnot. So you probably won't see a lot of activity out here on site for several months while that design is completed and the contract finalized and things. So we probably won't see any boots on the ground, so to speak, until spring of 2020 on this. We're delineating a crossing of Pacific Avenue there, and we are also not shown in this. I'll use the screen over here we're building a little spur trail to the county's sidewalk, which is above, just past this house here. They're planning on putting sidewalks, curbs, and gutters on this street, and so preemptively they asked us to add a connector, and we agreed because they were asking for other things that we didn't agree to. As a note, this is the paving section of our shoreline side of Lone Tree Point. We're replacing the gate and removing and replacing the pavement, and then you can see the alignment of the security fence down to a location that's very hard to get through already. It's a very wet spot. Right now we have an issue with, Union Pacific has an issue with homeless on their property, and they come right through here. So as a part of our MOU that was restated and amended in 2016, we've agreed to work with UP to address safety and security of our properties, and this was one of the properties that was in that MOU and called out. So we're going to put in a nice fence. This is the staging area. So we're doing some improvements, as I mentioned. The picture on the left is looking south towards Pacific Avenue, and the trail is where that red arrow is. The trail is being proposed along there. And then the picture on the right is looking north. This old foundation here, we've determined to not be historic, so we're going to remove it because the trail needs to go through there. It's an old railroad operator's quarters, I guess, if you will. We're looking at, this is a crude drawing, but the trail is going to come in from Civic Avenue through this staging area and end at the northern part. We're putting a restroom in here, and luckily we had sewer there already. We're going to tie into that, connect to utilities, and then you can see the ADA parking spot here, and then we're going to reduce it from 2 entrances, one here and one here, to 1 entrance. There's really no need for 2 entrances at this staging area, and it minimizes the crossings of the trail. We're going to replace that with a nice gate with tiger's teeth and things that can be completely shut down if needed. And we're going to replace these picnic tables over here and put in a nice path to them. Didn't have time to draw that in there, but this is an example of the CXT model Denali restroom that we'll be putting in there. Some of the features, has all the bells and whistles on it. I'm not entirely, can't commit to entirely all of them, but we are putting in a drinking fountain. We are also going to put in an interpretive panel that should mimic this. This is important at this site because really if you're coming from the north to this site, you are now entering what will eventually be a 50-mile continuous segment of the Bay Trail to Oakland. And so what I'm going to work with our Public Affairs Department and our Environmental Graphics Department on is making a comprehensive map that can go in the middle there that shows the entire segments, what's existing, what isn't. And then as time goes on, as we complete them, we'll color them in with green. We also agreed to, with the county, there's a little bit of a delay because the county has needs, just like we do. They didn't like how our trail ended at San Pablo Avenue, and so they requested a number of things. What we landed on here is that we're going to paint in a bike lane from the sidewalk, pedestrian striping, and a bike lane from the sidewalk and Parker Avenue to connect to the San Francisco Bay Trail. And I think this makes sense because what we're trying to do is get people in a low-stress environment to get out of their cars and to ride their bikes. And so this one was something that we could agree to. And then rough locations of the trees that we'll be planting, some on the upland side, but most in the staging area. So a little bit on what we've done. So the board adopted the mitigated neg deck back in February 2018. This project requires very few permits. So if I had more of these projects, I'd be able to work a lot faster. But really, it really needs a stormwater pollution prevention plan and a county building and grading permit. That's it. It's not in the BCDC jurisdiction. There are no species of concern of plants or animals here. We're missing the wetland with the bridge. We're going to do our normal BMPs to control our runoff and things, but there are, we've done surveys on the wetland too, and there aren't any species of concern in there. So hallelujah. So we got that going for us. So during the bidding process, we did put this out for a total of 52 days. That's a little longer than usual, but because we were advertising in August, I was a little concerned that nobody would have time to bid on this project. But this was advertised on 13 plan rooms in the Daily Pacific Builder and on our BPX Express plan room site on our website from August 12th to October 2nd. And we actually received 8 bids and lots of questions. There's a lot more plan holders than that. So a really great response. And then the lowest responsive responsible bidder was identified as Caroni and Company at $2,508,000, which is just under 700,000, just about 700,000 under the engineer's estimate.
Wow, that's amazing.
And General Manager Doyle asked me why, and I said, I don't know.
Don't ask.
But I know Caltrans doesn't have a lot of projects out right now, and this was competitive. So, and I will note too that we should feel very comfortable about the next 3 lowest bidders because they're right in the neighborhood. If those were a lot higher, then we'd have concerns. But we think we're on target here, and we're looking forward to that. So for the project budget, one of these was supposed to come up before the other, but so please look at the top table. This is a combination of Measure WW, Measure AA. funding from the Park District, and then grants that were acquired from the Coastal Conservancy, Transportation Fund for Clean Air, Urban Greening Grant coming in at the highest, and Measure J from Contra Costa County. So our total budget was $3.9 million roughly. Design environmental construction support for BKF, all inclusive. This number here includes the number with the amendment today that I'm asking for. The construction contract, we have a construction management firm that is managing the construction of this project, WSP. Their contract was awarded several months ago. As a part of the Urban Greening Grant, they like to see that youth Civic Corps crews are incorporated into our projects. So we'll have the Civic Corps or the SCA, this Student Conservation Association, plant the trees and do some work on the trees. Is what I'm envisioning. Permits and fees, these are guesstimates here, roughly $15,000. And then other costs, including a 15% contingency, is the remainder. So we're coming in under budget. We're fully funded for this project. There may be some changes here and there, but I've tried to encapsulate all of the other costs that I envision in that last line there. For the schedule, as I mentioned, SEEK was certified a year from this last February. The design was complete in August, and we went out to bid. We're hoping to have all the permits from the county, but it really depends on when that final design of the bridge occurs, because they need to sign off on the structural part of that. And then construction can happen as soon as we get a contract in place. They can mobilize and start getting their paperwork together, but we won't likely see, as I mentioned, any activity out on site for several months to come. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Who wants to be the first to ask any questions? Director Wasby.
I would be, thanks, Sean. I think this is an incredibly great project. On your last slide, do you have that one? Any relation? I like the graphic.
Oh, this was a painting I found online.
Oh.
No.
Good job.
No relation, okay.
No relation. No.
Okay, great. I was referring to Leslie Wilson.
No, to the senior planner, Suzanne Wilson, no.
Okay. And also, just my pet interest, you had a CXT restroom, a fairly attractive one, with drinking fountains. I didn't notice, it slipped by too fast, but did it have a water filling station? And if not, would that be an addition that, I'm sure they're very interested. I know that CXT is willing to change their standards and move things around.
I will look into that. Okay. There is quite a bit of homeless activity out here, and we're trying to find that balance between providing showers and water filling stations, if you can catch the meaning. But I don't know. I'll look into it.
All right. Thank you.
So I really appreciate that comment. I know Lisa's here too, and so is Christina. One of the highest recommendations in our online survey was for more water filling stations. So we really need to incorporate that into all our planning and thinking for all of our facilities. It also reduces plastic water bottles throughout the district. So I'm sure we can take a look at that and see how we do that. But I think water filling stations are really an important part of our future for the district.
And it's not too late to make changes in that regard if we haven't.
Is there anyone in the local community associated with this area who has projects for doing showers for homeless? You know, we had this discussion about Martinez. I don't know if you were involved in that at all. But that is something that support groups are trying to provide. And I am wondering if it's worth our time to do some, when we do have an issue that there are a lot of homeless, to at least inquire about if there are people interested in providing showers. Because we talked about this restroom before, and you really don't know what will happen with these restrooms, and sometimes it's not a good thing. So how would we go about doing that?
He's a trails guy. I don't know. I think we need to talk
I'm just
someone else.
asking generally, not necessarily for Sean, but.
Okay.
Well, I just, the board, I'm sure, is aware that we're being approached in numerous cities about partnering with the district on these type of facilities for homeless. And we really are very concerned about us being perceived as the go-to place.
Yeah.
Because cities have the primary responsibility and cities and counties have the services to do that. We do not. So it's a big issue for us. So we're being very careful about it. But we're in the park business. And people see a vacant piece of property and say, let's set something up there.
Yeah. Well, I realize, it's a slippery slope.
And we're having it right here, in fact, on our street.
Yeah. Okay, then the other thing is on the map, so are we actually, we're having two trails? We have two trails? We have a,
It's not really a trail. The yellow part you're referring to? It'll be
yeah.
a stripe on the side of the road to get folks to our shoreline side. One trail, half a mile, one bridge, and then a little spur trail up to the upper part of our property there. Is that answering your question?
yeah, well, so when it says green, existing trail, where,
Yeah.
where is the existing trail on this map?
On the very bottom left is where the Victoria by the Bay segment ends. Can you see it on the very, yeah, that's,
Okay,
it's hard to
these-
see.
All right, and the other green borders are just borders.
That's correct,
They're
those are
not
property
trails.
boundaries. That is not in the legend, but I can see that being confusing.
Okay, and then I know it may take you a while to get that bridge together and scheduled to install, but would you let us know when it's scheduled to install? Because I just think that would be really interesting to watch them install, 2 100-foot segments.
I absolutely will, and I'll be there.
Yeah.
So I will let you know, I will keep
Yeah,
everyone informed.
We may not make it, but it's fun to hear the engineers say, gee, I hope it'll fit. And just see it be constructed. Thank you.
It may look fun, and if you're asking that on installation day, that's not so fun.
You've turned Beverly into a bridge junkie.
I'm already,
You're all the way.
I've watched lots of those Ironhorse Trail bridges.
Okay, well, all the trails, she'll let you know. Okay, anyone else who would like to comment on this? I would like to call on another dedicated person, Colin.
Well, this is my backyard.
I thought it
More
should
or
be
less.
pretty close.
And I just wanted to thank Sean and all of our staff that have been involved in this project. It has been a tremendous effort, and having watched it since the time of commencement of my being on the board very carefully, I know how much time and effort you put into it and how much you put up with, because there are a lot of locals in that community that have an ownership in that park and have been very excited about this project. Beverly, the people that I'll follow up with on the homeless issue would be with the Rodeo Mac and Supervisor Glover's office. Supervisor Glover's office, I want to be polite. I mean, it's not pestering, but they're frequently, Dominic is frequently emailing you and me and asking about progress and conveying constituents' thoughts and aspirations for the improvements to the park. We were even asked by several whether we were considering turning it into a dog park.
Oh my.
I think I was safe saying no. And it's just an example. There's lots of interest, lots of concerns and excitement about it. We made a presentation to the Rodeo Mac last year. I've been involved in 2 hike outings along the Bay Trail, along that spot where the new trail is going to go forward, all the way back down to the new bridge, where the city manager Hercules took us out there, and I believe it was Greenbelt Alliance wanted to explore these new sections of the San Francisco Bay Trail. Anyway, lots of interest, lots of excitement about it. It's been a lot of work for Sean, and he hasn't mentioned it, but it was quite a effort for you to work with the county and get all the permitting through. And I kept saying, you want us to talk to the supervisor? You want us to talk to the supervisor? And he's an immensely patient person, Sean is, because he just, no, we'll work it through, we'll get it done. And he did, and it's a wonderful project. And there's, you know, these 30 trees to improve the staging area that's huge to that community. It's a small park, but that community, it's huge. And we will see as a result of our investment here, just in the Bay Trail and these improvements, that these neighborhoods on San Pablo Avenue there are going to improve over time, because there's going to be people interested in investing in them now because of what we've done. And it's just yet another example of how we can go into maybe economically distressed areas and do some improvements and go at risk a little with some of the improvements like the restroom, but in the long run it's going to pay off for that community big time. And we should keep that in mind and be proud of those efforts.
Any other comments? Director Waspy.
I'm just wondering, and maybe Director Coffey, you can comment. I recall being there 10 years ago, and the northern boundary, the development up there, it was pretty rough and tumble, so to speak, and it wasn't attractive. And we talk about attractive entrances to parks, and we're talking about what a great benefit this is going to be to the rodeo and the county. When they require us to put bike lanes in and do all kinds of improvements, did they acknowledge any responsibility or possibility of trying to clean up that area? From the aerial, it looks like it's pretty cleaned up to me now. From what I remembered, it was, well, could have been called artsy, but it was pretty scruffy. Thank you, Director Lane.
It used to be Bennett's Marina. It was a very vibrant locale. When I was a kid, I went up there with my father and used to chit-chat with Carl Bennett, Jeff Bennett's dad, by the way. Jeff grew up in that community, and his father was a good friend of all the leading politicians in the 60s and 70s, including my father. And so Bennett's Marina, the restaurant there was active. So it obviously took a turn over the last couple of decades, and there's an attempt to revitalize it and bring some business with Four Fools Winery, and Mark Grisham, a former city manager of Pittsburgh and I think San Pablo, or he's been a journeyman, a great guy, and very interested in that community, and one of those frequent correspondents with Sean and myself. So Mark is trying to build a winery and a business around there, and he has corresponded and had discussions with our general manager and some of our staff about the future of that marina there, and some possibilities for working it into long-term plans for the county, that area, and perhaps our park district. So it is in a slow but concerted effort to improve that marina, turn it into something else, in other words. And there's little pieces of property there that the park district has looked at various times, and so yeah, I think the answer is yes. There are plans and interests in doing a lot of improvements around what we're doing there now.
Yes, and our trip. I'm sorry. Do you want to?
And if I may, so if you look at the street pattern going towards the open space where the bridge is going to be, I think it's really important to point out that that was an active application for, I believe, 40 condominiums that were going to be 2 to 3 story with incredible views of the bay on that point. We actually condemned that property in court. The property owner wanted $1 million for the shoreline outboard of the tracks, and the court awarded a incredible decision to say that that's all within a public easement of a prescriptive right, unique trial, unique decision. So we actually got the shoreline for free, but we had to pay for the upland. But it was quite a great decision and quite great work by our legal counsel at the time, who was a condemnation expert, Jack Rogers, and he brought in photos from the 1920s of ladies who were still alive who used to go swimming in their 1920s bathing suit for free there on that shoreline, and proved that there had been a consistent public use on that shoreline. It was really an amazing piece of work. So, and again, the extra effort that the Park District makes to get some shoreline where there was hardly any left.
Okay.
I was only going to add that a lot of our projects, the presence of the Park District and these improvements are could be viewed as an impetus and to improvements elsewhere here, where we do affect the economy positively wherever we do these projects. So.
Well, we often talk about the underserved community. This strikes me as a good example of where we're doing that.
Yes.
And frankly, we have water fountains. I see no difference between having water fountains and having a bottle filler. They're all available for the public, and I think this site should have both. Does anybody disagree with that? No. I think it's a great project. Colin, you should be feeling really good today. Here's another really terrific thing happening in your ward. And I wonder if you would like to authorize this contract, if no one else has anything.
You know, I closed my book, so I will so move the resolution as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Director Lane seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations. More work for you.
Thank you for your
much.
support. Thank you.
Okay, then we will go on to board and staff reports, actions taken by other jurisdictions involving, affecting the Park District.
Thank you very much. You have, board members, you have two items that are pretty well explained there. I will say on the BCDC change to the Bay Plan, that's probably been going on for close to 10 years. It is a very big deal for a lot of public input, a lot of agency input, but it would allow for fill in the bay for environmental restoration and climate change adaptation. A lot of rules, a lot of review, but it would, for the first time, allow some what they call environmental benefit fill. And so we have been engaged with that with them because we have a lot of areas where we need to preserve the shoreline that's being eroded, and just dumping riprap everywhere because you don't have any room because you're avoiding BCDC is just not the best solution. A lot of discussion, of course, about longitudinal levees where you can actually plant wetlands on the outboard side of the bay to be able to do that. So that's been the purpose of this. But it was a lot of work to get there by BCDC and everyone else. Any questions on that? The second item is just an acknowledgement that our wonderful supervising naturalist at Big Break is going to be on the stakeholder engagement committee for the Delta. And as you know, our Big Break has been used by many agencies to host their tours and travel and meetings. So we're getting a really good bang for the buck on our building, in addition to the great community and educational service we provide there.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Right.
So I didn't think about this ahead of time, but since so many of the projects today were in Director Coffey's ward, I thought we'd have our chief of design present some of the other projects in other wards that we're doing, just to be fair and balanced. So Christina Kelch is going to introduce Lisa, but I wanted to remind the board as we head towards the budget that we have a huge amount of very large projects that for some reason are all pointed towards 2020 to be done, or very close to being done. I'll give you some leeway on that. But I think it's a good reminder that there's some just huge investment in public property and development and access in the East Bay by the Park District. And I think I'm really looking forward to seeing this myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, General Manager. Christina Kelchner, AGM of Acquisition Stewardship and Development. And I will tell you, I'm having a moment of just being feeling very lucky to work for this division, having seen Mike's presentation and Sean's presentation and Chris's presentation. We really are having a lot of long-term projects come to fruition, so it's an exciting time. As the general manager mentioned, we do want to give you an update on the design and construction side of things. We came to you in June and gave you an update of about 14 projects, major projects that we had completed as of that time. And we want to give you an update on other projects that are in the works. We have about 9 projects actively in construction right now. And we have several more projects going to construction next year, and they will be done in 2020. So again, a lot of things that have been in the works for a long time. We have the Shadow Cliffs Pavilion in Sentinel Beach, the Del Val Visitor Center. We completed the Visitor Center renovations at Crown Beach, the Star Residence, the restrooms at Little Hills. Of course, we have Dumbarton Quarry coming forward, the coal mine exhibit at Black Diamond Mines. There are many, many things coming forward right now, and we wanted to have a moment to just have the board kind of see them briefly all at once to get a sense of the volume and the scale of things that are coming forward in the near term. The projects that Lisa is going to review for us that are going to be completed by 2020 represent over $57 million worth of construction work. So it really is a huge volume of work. And I also wanted to mention that of that $57 million, 88% of that funding is from outside sources. So the district really does a tremendous job of leveraging our funding, and so only 12% came from general fund or 553 major infrastructure and repair funding. So, and Lisa's going to share more details of that with you. And most of these projects are through the Design and Construction Department, but as you've heard today, Chris and Sean both have trails projects and restoration projects going forward, so they're both here to answer any questions as well. With that, I'll hand it over to Lisa. Thank you.
Welcome, Lisa.
Good afternoon, Board President Wieskamp and directors, and thank you, Christina, for the nice welcome. I'm so excited to be here this afternoon. As Christina said, we're all very busy. So this, even as I was starting to go through this, I thought, my goodness, this is a very big district. So certainly I've been, have a background in building things, but this is a pretty big deal. So with that, I'll move on. So I always like to begin spatially to just sort of describe where we're doing the work. So for this presentation, we will be going through, first we're going to be going through the ones that are in dark orange. And so those are the projects that are under construction right now. Then we're going to go through the yellow dots, and those are projects that we will begin construction starting next year. And then the purple at the very bottom, those are 3 projects that will begin preliminary design, and those are ones that in particular I think the general manager wanted us to cover because of their significance. And I think I've already said this, but just again, I'll be going through these in order of progress. So usually we do things alphabetically, but I just, in case you're a letters person, that's why. And then finally, as Christina mentioned, I'm very fortunate to be here this afternoon presenting, but certainly Sean and Chris and all of ASD has been working on these projects, and we work really collaboratively with interpretation and recreation, public affairs, creative design group, operations, so, and then I'd be remiss if I didn't say grants and legislative affairs. So, there's a whole village who are delivering these. So I just wanted to spell them out. I think Christina has mentioned some of them just at the very beginning, but just this is the order for the ones that are under construction right now. So Black Diamond Mines and Oyster Bay, certainly I know you're familiar with those. I'll describe them further as we go through, and then the projects that are under construction right now to be completed next year: Bay Point Regional Shoreline, McLaughlin East Shore State Park, the Golden Gate Fields Trail, San Francisco Bay Trail, Lone Tree Point, which Sean just went over, Coyote Hills, Dumbarton Quarry Campground, and Del Valle Regional Park, the water treatment system renovation. So this actually is a B, so it happens to be going first. But we spent a lot of time on this, but I did just want to go over it. So this project continues to be on schedule to have the mine construction portion completed by the end of the year, and then work on installing the exhibits. Again, the goal is to to develop an immersive late 1800s mining exhibit and visitor experience for the Black Diamond Mines tour. It's about 1.3 million. It has some funding from the Regional Parks Foundation and our general fund. And as I mentioned, it should be completed by the end of the year. The next one is Oyster Bay. So I think we were just out there on a very cold spring afternoon earlier this year for a board tour. So again, the project goals are to establish final vegetation cover and develop a disc golf course and install bay-friendly plantings. And I think if Kim were here, Kim Collins, she would emphasize just the complexity of this project. It's on a landfill, and so in order for us to do any plantings or park development, we have to put the icing on the cake, she describes, so we don't penetrate or puncture, get into that landfill. So we've got a 1.4 million budget, funding from AAWW relief grant and the general fund, and again, we anticipate having this completed by this fall. So this is Chris's project, but I'll give it an introduction. At Bay Point, the goals are to provide public access improvement to the Harrier Trail and staging area and provide marsh wetland and upland habitat restoration for special status species. It has a $5.2 million budget, and as you can see, it has quite a number of funding sources. So to Christina's earlier point, I might be pointing that out along, just how well and how strategic the district is at leveraging district funds with others. Chris, do you want to add anything else? Okay. This is another one of Chris's projects. So I was really excited about this because I got to ask him to send me photos. So to see sort of the progress, and just as a reminder, this is that gap that this project is filling, and I think my understanding is this is really being cantilevered across the bay. So good job, Chris. That's pretty impressive. So so this is a closure in the gap of the San Francisco Bay Trail, or the McLaughlin East Shore State Park Regional Shoreline Golden Gate piece. Certainly it's a very significant project at 11.2 million, and it has 5 outside funding sources. Chris, do you have anything else? And I'm not going to spend very much time on this because Sean just gave a presentation, but I do think it is important to just, this is in the mix. So certainly this came before you today, and will be starting. And we have Coyote Hills. This is just a tremendous project. Again, just in terms of the scale, I was talking to Jim O'Connor earlier this morning, and we decided that we could safely say it's the only campground on the East Bay, because we couldn't quite, the South Bay was a little sketchy. We weren't sure about that. So, but just what an opportunity for the whole community to have this full service campground with an amphitheater. So we'll be able to have programs, restroom, shower, camp store, kiosk, and just an incredible location along the bay. We show that the budget is 3 million. That's the district's contribution, but we know that
The developer's probably in the $12 million range, so we'll get an update there, but yet that's our share of basically a $15 million project, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to move on. We can talk about schedule it's a little bit later. Again, Del Val Regional Park, renovate the water treatment system. We were just in front of you at the beginning of October. I did want to highlight, this is one of these projects where we have a special state appropriation, which really allow this project to advance. It's also the first project that I'm talking about that's really a major maintenance. So I think it's a really great example of taking care of what we have, which I think the district does a fantastic job at. And completion by next fall. So those are the ones.
Lisa, if I can just comment,
Yeah.
I think it's, so Pat O'Brien was trying to get money for that water system when he was here. So that's how long we just kept saying we're spending district general fund money on a state park facility, and we just wouldn't give up. And finally, we had the great help from Assemblywoman Baker and Senator Glazer, and it really, you just don't get these type of appropriations, but a few, and we're really lucky and tenacious.
So I'm going to move along to the projects that we are going to begin next year, and we anticipate that they'll be completed. So another project at Del Val, the Visitor Center renovation, which, and then Shadow Cliffs for an interpretive pavilion, Alameda Point Regional Shoreline, and the Encinal Beach restoration, McLaughlin East Shore State Park Regional Shoreline, develop Brickyard Cove, and Contra Loma, the docks and restroom improvements. And we will also begin Sibley, the Volcanic Regional Preserve, restore McCosker Creek, and it will be completed in 2022. So for the Visitor Center renovation at Del Val, the proposed design that we were working with Creative Design Group with identifies expanding the existing visitor center space into the former concessionaire area and utilizing that flexible space surrounding the building to provide a more integrated visitor experience between the indoor and the outdoor spaces. And in addition to upgrading the interior, we'll also be looking at new interpretive exhibits, and the design will address accessibility and energy efficiency. So we anticipate this being completed next fall with about a budget of about $2 million. At Shadow Cliffs, we are going to be moving forward with developing the interpretive pavilion. The goal of this is to provide a space for school programs as they're launching to visit through into the Arroyo. So it provides that shade and an interpretive area before they begin. I just wanted to point out in the photos, this is it's looking this is sort of, this picture is looking towards, is looking towards the Arroyo, and here these folks are standing, this is just west of the parking lot, and so parking lot's back there. So it's a sort of triangle area that's just a really nice gateway. The size of it for the school kids is about 30 kids. That's how it's been designed, and we're really fortunate to have funding from the Harringtons and State Parks Grant. At Alameda, we visited this site again in July as one of the board tour stops. I am regretful that I didn't take photos that day because, as you recall, there was like 40 6-year-olds there. Go back. Here we go. Launching for a day camp into little sailboats. So it was quite impressive, all of that coordination that those camps, I think those are run by the City of Alameda. So let's see. This is a great access and restoration project where we're looking at doing the dune restoration and then also an accessible route to the water. I think that not only will help from a barrier-free perspective, but those type of improvements really help everybody access the resource. So I think it's really important, and I did want to point that out. And then just that the City of Alameda is currently renovating the boat launch and the restrooms, which are just adjacent to this. So again, this is a project that's got several funding sources in addition to the district's funds. So now we're moving a little bit north. This is at McLaughlin East Shore State Park Regional Shoreline to develop Brickyard Cove. And the goals are, and it's located, I think we visited this site as well. It's just to the west of University Avenue in Berkeley. And it's supported by California State Parks to provide new opportunities to picnic, walk, and enjoy the views of the San Francisco Bay along the McLaughlin shoreline. So this project, as you can see, will develop a new parking lot, picnic area, and a whole bunch of plantings and trails. So we anticipate awarding a construction contract this spring with completion in the fall for about $5.2 million. The next one is Sibley. This is one I think that has been in front of you several times now. So as again, the goal is, or maybe the goal, but really the sort of the headline statement is that this is the biggest stream restoration project the district has undertaken to date. It's about 250 acres of open space with 4 acres of restoration and enhancement that will remove invasive species, revegetate the site with native habitat communities, and our big talking point, daylight over 3,000 linear feet of previously culverted creek that was culverted. We were out there a couple weeks ago where Director Lane accepted $4 million from the state, a state special appropriation, which was a lovely ceremony, and again, it just speaks to the amount of money that the district is able to bring in. I might be saying that too much, but it's really unusual. I just want to point that out.
You're not saying it too much.
Okay. So let's see. So, and now at Contra Loma, this is continuing the improvements that we've been making there. So just when I first started, we had just completed redoing the boat launch and new restroom and picnic areas and fish cleaning stations. Then we replaced a dock, and now we're replacing 2 more docks and these chemical toilets with vault toilets. And this is just another great example of taking care of what we have, make it accessible, making it a really welcoming visitor experience for our users. With funding from the Bureau of Land Reclamation, Wildlife Conservation Fund, in addition to our major infrastructure repair and replacement. So this is another one that we anticipate completing this year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these planning projects that we're going to be working, planning and pre-design. And I've been asked this question before, so I'm just going to explain it. People say, Lisa, what do you mean when you say pre-design? Like, what is that? And so the way I like to describe it is pre-design is the work that you do to describe what you're going to do. So it has enough technical information to know that you can build it, but doesn't have enough technical information so that you could build from it. So it's going to tell you what you're going to do, and that's really helpful for those of us who are then going to go on and take it through the design and permit process and create a set of plans, construction documents that will result in bid documents that we can go out to bid. But the pre-design, that's what really identifies what it is you'll be advancing that design of. So I hope that's helpful. Of course.
Does pre-design help you sort of take a first stab at what it's probably going to cost?
A planning level cost, that most definitely, yeah.
Thanks.
So we'll go over Concord Hills, complete the land use plan, the district headquarters, Peralta Oaks North renovation, and then Tilden Park Replace Environmental Education Center. So again, this is one that I know that you're all very familiar with, but we did want to highlight it, especially since my understanding it's been over 15 years, maybe 16 if it's Brian, probably more if it's the general manager, about having this land come to the park district. So the district accepted the land from the Navy in July, this past July. Previous to that, there had been a tremendous amount of work done by planning to identify what activities and facilities and restoration would best suit this site and serve the community. So learning from Brian from planning, the final EIR and land use plan were both published this past October. Comments are being accepted through December 5th. And additionally, just a couple weekends ago on October 26th, there was an open house on site. We had over 100 people that were in attendance and very supportive. So, and really excited about the opportunity to view the property. So we anticipate coming to the board for adoption this land use plan in the spring. Christina, do you have anything else? Okay, Brian's not here. And then we have this lovely building. It's across the courtyard from us, we might say. The district headquarters. So clearly this is a very significant moment for the district to move forward with an additional headquarters building to create a campus for district headquarters. We've now begun to put together a cross-divisional team to work on this project, and we anticipate coming back in December to share more about how we'll proceed with the scope and the schedule. So we're working on it. Yeah?
Are you accepting questions? So you're awarding a consultant contract in 2 years from now?
That, I think you, Director Waspy, that is a typo. It should be 20.
Thank God.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to give you a heart attack.
That was the right answer.
Yeah. Good that, yeah, thank you for catching that. And then finally, we have Tilden Regional Park. So this is, the project goals for this are obviously to integrate the facility, integrate a new facility within the site and that nature area. And this is a project that we're now moving forward with after the recent completion of a feasibility study that recommended rebuilding versus renovation. And we discussed this at the, I believe, the March board tour. So we are working closely now with the Regional Park Foundation, Interpretation and Recreation and Operations to kick off this project. So I don't know if you ever listened to Marketplace, but Kai Rizdal always says, let's do the numbers. So just wanted to try to go through that with you. This was my exciting part. So the way I like to think about it is, what are we doing to maintain what we have, and what are we doing to expand capacity? So we have 13 projects that we went through that will expand our district's capacity. That means that we're having this opportunity for more places and resources for the community to enjoy and connect with nature. They also certainly are new, so they require more resources to maintain and operate. We have 4 projects that maintain the district's assets, so I think that is always important. I know as a community member, I like to know we're taking care of what we have. Christina mentioned that the total of these projects, not including the pre-planning ones, but the ones that we know we're going to construction, is about $57.5 million. So when I first got up here and I said, this is a really big district, this is a lot of this is a really big deal. So, and I think just as Christina recognized, when we looked back at the different funding sources, it's really amazing to have 12% of that be from the district and 88% leveraged. And I think, so I think just that's one of the things that's a little bit different for me coming here. Christina encouraged me to mention this, so I'm just going to just take a moment. So many places I've worked, and I think it's pretty typical in other public works agencies, they have a CIP and they have a budget, right? And so they say, you're going to do this project, and this is what the budget is. And that, I think, is very helpful. And when I got here, I was very confused that we didn't have that. And because, you like what you know. So, but again, as I review the work that we're doing and the ability of the district to leverage other people's money, I think, as you say, it really puts us in a unique position to spend our money to figure out what we want, and then go and advocate and get people to join with us to help us achieve that goal. I was trying to channel Juliana there. So, but I think it's pretty powerful. I think it's so anyway, that's my little editorial part. So anyway, and then we have, again, the 3 signature and pretty complex projects that will start pre-design. Here's our schedule about what's next. So I tried to put the little blue diamonds on the items where we would be back to the board. I'll give you a moment to look at that. Oh, that would be helpful. Definitely. Yes, definitely. I'll just kind of cover the highlights. We anticipate coming in December to the board for the award of the Shadow Cliff construction contract. In the winter, we anticipate, Dennis, we anticipate, Director Waspy, awarding this winter in December 20, or not December, but in 2020, a consultant contract for design services for the Peralta Oaks North headquarters. We also, in the winter of 2020, anticipate completing the Golden Gate Fields project and Bay Point. In the spring, we anticipate coming to you for adoption of the Concord Hills Land Use Plan and awarding construction contracts for Alameda Beach, the Brickyard project, and Sibley. And then we're working, and expect many of these projects to be complete in 2020. So with that, thank you. And do you have any questions?
I think we feel pretty well informed.
Yeah.
And reminded that how lucky we are to have such staff that goes out and finds us other people's money to get it done, because otherwise we could not be nearly as effective. Any other questions at this time? Just a suggestion on those pre-planning things, the big projects, maybe we could get regular little updates next year going through to that. Like
Concord and the planning
building
project?
across
Oh,
and
yes.
so on, just how you're coming along
So,
on
so
that.
that what this doesn't show, this is actually the DECO actions that come to the full board, was it doesn't show us how many times he's come to the executive committee or another committee. It could be another committee as well. I mean, for example, there are many of these projects that have gone to legislative committee just talking about the effort to get the money.
Getting the money.
So, but absolutely, we will continue to do that as we have in the past, and it's very helpful to staff to know that the board is well informed, but also that, hey, this costs more, we had to make a change, this wasn't feasible, because in the design process, that's the vulnerabilities to, Sean pointed out the challenge we're having just getting steel for a bridge. That's an actual international issue with this administration. Steel has really gone up a lot and harder to get. So there's just a lot of that's out of our control. So it gives the staff an opportunity to bring it to the board to say, this is where this is going well, this is a challenge, or this is a change. You're going to do the same thing with permitting. That is another big impact. We didn't go through the permit process here, nor did we want to spend 5 more hours doing that. But it's a big part of this, is all the permits that stewardship does, that Matt's staff does. Every one of these requires some permits, so that's just another part of that.
I'm sure Matt will help us get through the permits. He didn't roll his eyes too fast, so that was good. Okay. Yay.
And that's one of the reasons why the projects that we went over today have secured funding and permits. So we're able to move forward.
Yeah. Most impressive? Anybody disagree? Dee? Rosario?
I don't disagree. No.
He does not disagree.
But I just wanted to know how you delineated some of the projects, because there's a lot of projects we know aren't mentioned, like Judge John Sutter, Crowley, Roberts.
Maybe we can get more report on that another time.
Sure, just as a reminder, these were ones that are going to construction next year.
Some of these are already constructed.
And then the second question is, are any of these Measure CC related? Are they related to Measure CC at all?
Many of them are in CC. I'm not sure if the major construction included that, because most of CC is spent down. So we'll be ramping up for FF.
Because I know we're coming towards the end of Measure CC, so we're committed to finishing projects that we committed to in that proposition. Yeah. So
maybe they could find the information.
And most, I may be wrong, but I think it's correct, most of the remaining funds in CC now are really labor-related. They are the staff positions. And a lot of these projects that are in the CC, now FF area, East Shore being a really good example, there's money there through CC, and then we'll be with FF. So a lot of these may not have any additional construction-related money, but they would have the CC area job-related issues, which are ongoing.
Director Lane? A shared?
Yeah, I had a question about Brickyard, because you showed that the completion of the Phase 1 projects next year. Are we going to allow public access to the trail and out to the spit before that, or is that whole area going to remain closed until the Phase 1 projects are done?
My understanding is what's closed now, access to the water, to that spit, that's part of the Phase 1 development. So once Phase 1 is done, then we'll be able to open it.
So I think to interpret that answer, I think it's that it will remain closed, what's closed now, until the project's done. The issue there is that it's very hard, and we know that all of our parks, I mean, we had a park closure for the whole system, and we know people were in the parks. we also know that there are people in Brickyard all the time. But officially, it's closed because once we open it, it's really hard to reclose it. And because we're going to be moving dirt and construction, and it's not like the staff is building something, it's a contractor. The contractors are very concerned about liability, they're very concerned about their equipment, and so we usually have to close those areas, and just, we always think about that, but they're just, the staging of that construction is problematic on a lot of these areas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I am Director Corbett.
Lisa, I was just wondering, when did you say Oyster Bay was going to be completed?
The disc golf is anticipated to be complete this year.
And then the rest of the project?
The, in terms of the parking area, and so we're working with the city of San Leandro
Yes.
on updating the access, and so so we're continuing to work on that. That won't work, that work's not stopping, but the disc golf portion will be completed, and so I think when we are able to move forward with the city of San Leandro on a new access off, the new access off of Neptune, will continue. So I can't give you a date.
Okay. But that's probably another year off or so.
A while.
Yeah, I think the actual construction of that entrance is not the issue. It's just getting the access with the city.
Okay.
She's
All right.
being
Thank
very
you.
honest.
No.
But you're getting progress there, so that's good. Anyone else have a comment or question? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
And President Wieskamp, I just really want to thank Lisa for this. And I also, things that aren't heavily emphasized in this, one, this is all part of your budget deliberations too, because this is the reality that all of these very large projects are coming online. Some of those projects have been already partially funded on staff, none 100%. So you will be seeing a lot of the recommended staffing coming forward is going to be related to anticipating these coming online. So they'll have, if we're going to open this anywhere in 2020, we've got to put it in the budget now. So that's the challenge, and I think it's something that that we just want you to be very aware of. I think it's unique in our history to have $57 million worth of projects coming forward in any one year, if maybe one or two slip, but not Dumbarton.
Oh, thank
no,
you
we
so
won't
much
let
for
that
that.
happen.
Sure.
But it's a really big issue, but it's also a big issue to you and the staffing that's required in the budget, and that stress of we need more staffing in existing parks, but now we're going to open up these parks, and you can't turn the spigot off because we've been working on these for 20 years and they involve a lot of other people's money. I also really want to appreciate Lisa acknowledging other departments, and particular the legislative and grants. This is remarkable, and I just caution everybody in the future, like with the HCP, and we're saying we're getting 45 and then 90%. That's not going to happen forever. It's a very wonderful time in the district that we have those opportunities, but I don't anticipate we're going to get 88% of our big projects funded. Part of these issues is that these are very big, if I may, sexy projects for legislators. They're very visible, they're grand, they're phenomenal from the standpoint of what they're actually doing. That Bay Trail section at Golden Gate Fields is probably the most amazing, other than the Pinole Shores project we already did, amazing construction along San Francisco Bay. I mean, for public access. So these are complicated, they're expensive to manage, but I really, it's beyond even my thinking that we would have been this successful in getting other people's money for these projects. And I really, a lot of those $4 million chunks came out of the legislature, and multiple other projects, a lot of transportation money. But you collectively have been working on this for many, many years to get this money here. So the complaint I hear the most from the board is it takes 10 years to get a project done, or it takes a long time. but it's also given us the time for that 10 years to get that money we wouldn't have been able to get. So that's part of that trade-off. So I just want to appreciate all the work that's being done by staff on these projects, and there's many, many more. But I think we were trying to get the really big ones out here and what that meant. There's 24 other smaller $100,000, $500,000, $1 million projects. These are the really big ones coming forward that you really need to be aware of.
Well, I think I'd like to recognize the $5 million that came to a very unsexy project, and that's Delville Water System. I think persistence paid off, and even the state, it can get real realistic once in a while. I certainly appreciate it, and I know staff does, because that's really an important issue for us. Okay, thanks again, staff. That was well done. We feel updated. Do we have any announcements from closed session?
Madam President, we do have a speaker on this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then please speak on this. Mr. Abreu?
So these projects are very demanding. They require a steadfast focus. They require far-sighted vision. They require powerful expressions of optimism. And when we talk about the Kai Risdall music, I'm a big fan. Everyone is a big. That's the most popular business show in America, and he's got happy music. He's also got sad music. The sad music comes up every once in a while, and when we talk about these projects. I've been watching projects in my backyard. They cost hundreds of millions of dollars to complete some of these projects. A couple of $1 billion. These are transportation projects. And what I've seen is these people, project managers all over the Bay Area, this very high, expensive area to build in, they're able to hit their budgets. They got budget discipline. They meet their budgets. Okay? Hitting budgets is not their problem. Their problem is schedule adherence. Schedule adherence on these projects is outrageous. And what we got here, what we didn't see here, we did not see the origination dates. We did not see milestones. We did not see a dashboard. We don't know, if you don't have a schedule and you don't have milestones, you don't know where you are. And going back to the accountants, there's a FIFO, first in, first out. It's all about timing, and that's an accounting concept that ties the time to the money. Money comes in, money comes out, first money, first going, whatever. So these projects tend to drop off the radar, and I would just urge you, and I don't have to mention the project, because I'm sure you know which project I'm talking about. The oldest project now, besides Oyster Bay, outside of that one, is not on this list, and there's no progress. There's no progress. Things drop off the radar. They drop off the budgets. We don't know where the money is. We don't know what the budget is going to be, and we don't know what the milestones are. We don't know what when you complete this, when you get a sequel, when you get a board approval, where are the milestones? Where are you? What budget? It's not budget. It's schedule adherence and milestones, and that's what we need. That's what we don't have, and we can go back to my favorite projects and apply it there, but it just applies across the board. Thank you.
And President Wieskamp, I just, on behalf of this entire staff, I wish to strongly disagree and find it very offensive what was said to the staff. So I will leave it at that.
President Wieskamp, there are no announcements from closed session, but I did want to make sure that it was recorded that Director Coffey recused himself from item B1A and B. There's the BNSF versus East Bay Regional Park District and East Bay Regional Park District versus BNSF, and he recused himself from those discussions.
He was absent during that session. Yes. Thank you very much. Board committee reports, operations. Anybody have any comments or questions? Hearing none. Board Executive Committee? Hearing none. Any public comments?
No, Madam President.
All right. Board comments. Since Mr. Coffey has had such a good day, I'm going to start with him. He should be feeling really good. I know he is.
Yeah, all around a very good meeting, Madam President. Thank you. The highlight of my October outings was unquestionably the October 17th Antioch Big Truck Day. I was dispatched by Mr. O'Connor to help with the crew, showing off our, it's that big vacuum truck, I don't remember the technical term.
Big green,
That big, huge green truck, and it was very popular among the folks out in Antioch with a lot of competition. I think some of you have been out to these truck days, and they're a lot of fun. And the crew, the truck crew, Brian and Spencer, hanging out with those guys was a lot of fun, and it was it's a great outing for the Park District. The 18th, I attended the Legislative Committee, and that evening with a lot of you folks, my colleagues, the Employee Service Awards dinner, which went very well, and I'm always happy to be able to attend that. On the Sunday the 20th, I was a speaker at the Contra Costa Young Democrats annual picnic, which simply made me feel really old.
My goodness.
So I'm not sure.
I can laugh at that. Come on.
Yeah, I can, because, you know, they invite you, can you talk about, you know, the past, the history of the Young Democrats movement in Contra Costa County? And
You just learn it.
well, and you know, they address you as if you'd been in attendance at the Gettysburg Address, right? You know, to these kids, you know.
A little more positive, please.
Yes, I don't know that I'm going to do this next year. Thank you, Chief. On the 21st, the Contra Costa Special District Association meeting in Wanna Creek highlighted a presentation on the horizontal levee project along the Hayward shoreline by the, Matt isn't here, I'm going to forget the agency, the local sanitary agency in Hayward. Oraloma, that's the name. And so they made a presentation, and they did commend our efforts to be of assistance, and apparently we participate on a JPA that oversees that horizontal levee project. The 24th, I attended the Los Trampas board tour with most of you folks, and that evening the John Muir Land Trust annual open house, at which you should all be aware that the Land Trust, Linus Uckel, as he did today, is always reciting the role of the East Bay Regional Park District in their projects and as their partner. On the 25th, Director Lane and I attended the East Bay Leadership Council's congressional update, the speaker being Mark DeSaulnier, and somewhere along his presentation he actually looked at Director Lane and myself and thanked us for his use of our helicopter. He took some congressional colleague out for a tour of some projects in the Bay. I forget the whole story, but it was nice to hear the congressman thank us for use of our helicopter. The 26th, I attended the Multicultural Wellness Walk out at Big Break, another successful outing organized by Mona and her folks. Upon leaving that, the wellness walk, I encountered a group led by Mike Moran of, I think it's the GM referred to them earlier, one of these field trips by a water district that was part of the Metropolitan Water Commission from Southern California, and they all visit Big Break, and I was introduced and got an opportunity to welcome them to Northern California and the California Delta and our Big Break Regional Park, and I just really restrained from saying anything about don't take our water. And I just
Not easy, is it?
it was really difficult not to add that, you know, welcome and keep your hands off our water, but I was very polite and cordial. Mike Moran would have it no other way. On the way back, I visited, Chris is off the Bay Point project, the Bay Point Shoreline project, and there's lots of big machines working out there, grading, earth moving, and a sight to behold just to see all that work in place, taking place. And that evening, again, with several of my colleagues, I attended the Chabot Space Science Center Gala, and they were very pleased to show off the new deck in the back area that the Park District helped fund through local Measure WW funds. On the 29th, I attended the Trails Workshop and was gratified to be able to listen to all our public that attended and spoke on the issues of multi-use trails and multi-use trail development. I think that covers it. Council mentioned that I was recused from this closed session because of the discussion of BNSF, and that's specifically because I discovered that BNSF is wholly owned by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, and that conglomerate, and that my wife and I have owned some stock in Berkshire Hathaway for many years. And so we sold it so that I can participate in these discussions in the future, but it takes a year until you're allowed, after receiving income from an investment fund like that, to then participate. That covers my month. Thank you.
And we appreciate the fact that you did exactly what the letter of the law says. So thank you. Director Corbett.
Thank you. On October 17th, I attended the Operations Committee meeting. On the 18th, the Legislative Committee meeting. Also on the evening of the 18th, along with many of my colleagues, the Service Awards, another really wonderful event. Such a nice opportunity to get together with all the people that make this Park District run and celebrate their hard work and their milestones. And it was a lovely event, and obviously a lot of effort went into the planning of it, with everything from the program to the beautiful flowers that were put together by staff as well. It was really nice. On the 24th, I went to the Los Trampas board trip. That was also very interesting. Nice to see all that great work that's going on out there. On the 26th, I also attended the Starlight Gala at Chabot Space and Science Center, and it was nice to get caught up to date on all the work that they're doing and meet an astronaut. You didn't mention that. Mm-hmm. It was a lovely evening, and I hope they're very successful in the work that they're doing, because they have a lot of great outreach to students to get them involved with science and STEM and all that. So let's see, on the 29th, also attended the Trails Workshop. And on the 30th, I attended Marie Arnerich's retirement dinner, or not dinner, but celebration in the afternoon. And I was able to joke with her that it's not just anybody, that we close all the parks in order to celebrate her retirement. It was a good day for a party. And on that note, I just want to thank everybody for all their extra efforts. It's been a challenging few weeks with the windstorms and that impact on the parks, the fires, our wonderful people, up north fighting to save people's properties, the power outages, and, everything else that goes along with living in our beautiful region. So thank you to everybody in dealing with all of those serious challenges. And then my last thing to report is on November 1st, I had my one-on-one with the GM, and we went over a lot of great things, and I appreciate his time and effort on those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lane.
Thank you. It has been a busy couple of weeks since the last board meeting. I attended the Operations Committee, had a chance to go to the Service Awards, which was really a lovely event, and a little conga dancing there for Karen, which was a highlight of the evening. I did go to the Cowboy Hootenanny with my great-nephew and his friend, who are 9 going on 10, and impossible to get them out of the event. They loved every minute of it. And actually, Ann and I had a chance to go and see the new courtyard, which I will say at Sunol is so much better than the pit that was there before, should I say. So that was very interesting. It was kind of an added thing to going to Sunol. And then attended the workshop, the Trails workshop, which was interesting. At least one of my good friends who works on the Friends of San Ramon Creek showed up at that, because he also is involved with high school students and mountain bike. Then I went, Colin and I were both at the East Bay Leadership lunch at East Brothers Brewery. So I took the opportunity after that to drive through Miller Knox and check out if it was still there and what was going on. And it was a beautiful day, so not a whole lot of people there, but the park looked just really terrific. Then I went to another East Bay Leadership Conference breakfast at St. Mary's, in which Congressman Bauer Kahns spoke, and again saw her at McCosker, where we had an opportunity to discuss the creek restoration and take a nice walk around and see where the campground will be as well. So that was a nice event, and there was something in the paper today on that walk, which was, I mean, it was like a week later or so, but it was there, so we were happy. So I appreciate that coverage. Then Las Trampas Wilderness Field Trip was fun, nice to have one in my backyard. And of course I attended the Concord Hills public meeting and found it very, the thing that was, they had a wonderful walk around. There had lots of national park folks and our staff, which was very interesting. And you know, you evidently a Mediterranean gecko have invaded our magazines out there. They're about this big, and before we walked into one of the bunkers, you know, they warned us that they were a Mediterranean gecko. And so I was like, ooh, you know, how large is this gecko? And you do know people who are phobic about snakes and spiders, but a little gecko like that, people seem to be able to take it. A new critter to me. The other thing that was interesting about, for me at the Concord Hills, was they asked people to put dots on possible names for the park, since, as you know, Concord Hills has been, we've been used that as a temporary name. And the two most popular were Concord Hills and Chupcon, which was the Bay Miwok natives who were in that area. And they were, you know, they were recognized by people far and beyond anything else. And I thought that was very interesting indeed, because I didn't know anybody knew anything about the Chupcon. So keep that in mind when we get the land use plan coming here, because if you want to talk about parks that don't recognize populations that were here, having a park named for one of our native tribes might be an interesting thing to do. Then I went to the Chabot Gala and saw the deck and the telescopes. You know, Rachel is still there.
And the rings of Saturn.
What?
And the rings of Saturn.
And the rings, I would have said the rings of Saturn, except my eyes are not doing that very well. So, but everyone else saw those. And then I saw Desaulniers again at a town meeting in Danville, which was 8 minutes from my house, and so it's, you know, it's hard to resist. going to those. And he has enormous numbers of people that come to these town hall meetings, in part because he brings in people to talk on panels on a subject. And this was a very interesting panel as well. The night before, I had an event at my house celebrating the California legislature's ratification of the 19th Amendment. And so several of us from that event went to the Desaulniers party with our Votes for Women sashes on. And I will say I thought we looked pretty unusual, but I'm not planning on wearing my sash really that much.
Not all year.
You know, I just got it before the other event, and now it's semi-retired.
It went over well.
And then I just wanted to say it has been a kind of stressful couple of weeks, and I just want to pay tribute to the firefighters who are there all over California, doing their best against unbelievable winds, which are frightening for all of us. And I wanted to thank the manager for giving all of us a call about the Garin fire that took place on Sunday as a result of an arsonist. And that brought it really home to what can happen, and we can only be happy the winds were not sustained on Sunday. So thank you.
Director Wasby.
Thank you. On October 16th, I attended the California Association of Recreation and Park District retreat in Sacramento, and we planned some great events for the 2020 year. On October 24th, I attended the board field trip at Los Trompas and environs, and noticed and found a lot of great entries to Los Trompas that I never knew existed. On October 27th, I attended the HASPA Shoreline Master Plan event. The contractor that's doing that work hosted the community out there. Unfortunately, it was the high wind, high fire day, so most of our events were indoors, but it was very informative. A lot of excited people to see what's going on the Hayward Shoreline. On the 29th, I attended the Trails Workshop, and it was interesting, and it was great to hear people's views on how we should use our trails or build our trails. On the 30th, I went to Marie Arnerch's retirement party, and as Director Rosario gave a wonderful tribute to Aaron Cobb, and Marie was Marie, and it was a fitting tribute. She is one of the all-time greats of this park district, and they don't make them like Marie anymore. I think my last comment would be the one of the most interesting things I did was when I came home from the HASPA Shoreline Master Plan event. I saw the wind, I witnessed the wind, I heard about all the fires breaking out all over the place. So I just kind of happened to stop by the command post at the public safety headquarters, and fortunately Dr. Alvarez invited me in, and I had an opportunity to see the operation of the command center, and it was very, very interesting. It was incredibly interesting, very, very professionally run. It was amazing how everyone was included, not just police and fire. Public safety was there, public affairs was there. It was very interesting. Carol Johnson was working on figuring out all the logistics that we had to do. You know, hey, we're closing the parks. Okay, easy, we'll close the parks, but we have to let people know we're closing the parks. So Carol was on the phone to Jonathan Hobbs saying, hey, let's make some signs. We got to get some things going here. We've got to alert the public to what's going on. Dave Mason was typing away, doing a press release, letting everybody know what was going on as the PIO. I think you were the PIO of that event, weren't you? And everybody had a role. Everyone seemed to be doing an incredible job and thinking of things that, well, as a firefighter, I would have thought about putting out a fire or having people dispatch and stationed in the right places. When fires were breaking out, there was a fire in Coal Canyon when we were there. Alerting, you know, it's great, you close parks because there's fires all around, but do you alert the park residents? Somebody had the good sense and foresight to say, hey, let's start calling everybody. There was a fire in Coal Canyon. We didn't know exactly where it was or where it was going, but the winds were so strong that one of the park resident in Coal Canyon needed to be found and let know of that kind of stuff. So just this tremendous amount of work that needed to be done was being done in this small little room, and it was a great job, and I felt really good being there. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Director Rosario?
Oh, pardon me. And excuse me.
Recall
and
one more.
I hesitate to remember, we keep talking about all the fire folks, and I'm a fire folk. I used to love going to those fires. It was never painful to me. I loved it. But I know the duress and strain they're under and all the great job they're doing. But I think we really need to give a shout out to our police department, because on Sunday, we arrested the arsonist. We caught the arsonist. And it was our people that did it, right, Chief? Yes. Good.
But you better add that some citizen cared enough to follow and give us the information. So we need appreciation of that citizen if we've got a name. I think that's just critical.
Yeah.
But good, absolutely. Good job all around.
Okay, let's see. On the 16th, I attended the funeral for Israel Lopez Galiban along with the Roberts crew at St. Elizabeth's Parish, and then he was interned at what I call the Crystal Ship, the new cathedral on Lake Merritt. Very sad event. And then on 10/17, I met with another possible candidate for Ward 1. And then on the 18th, I attended the Legislative Committee as an alternate for Dennis. And then on the 18th, I attended that evening, I attended the Employee Recognition Dinner. I must say, those things, they seem to keep getting better and better. I don't seem special, this one. And then on the 21st, I attended the State of the Estuary Conference. I wish I could have stayed for the whole thing. There was, again, one of the topics was the topical treatments for our pets, flea and tick treatments, are ending up in the estuary and ending up in our clams and the sturgeon. And so they're really seriously tracking it, and they're trying to prevent it. I guess they're recommending oral treatments for your pets. That doesn't seem to leave the pet. And then one of the other things on the climate change was that there's a prediction for no snow by 2050. And so all of our water is going to be, all of our potable water is going to be through rain events. And so I'm thinking maybe we should be planning accordingly. And then on the 22nd to the 23rd, I attended the California Alliance for Retired American annual conference. We're really gearing up to campaign for the Schools and Communities Act, which would modify Proposition 13. And then on 10/24, the field trip at Las Trampas, great event. It's nice to see the things on the ground so that gives us a better perspective. And then on the 26th, I attended the Chabot Space and Science Elemental Gala, which was fabulous. Lots of science experiments going on there. And also, just meeting a real astronaut was very cool. And then on 10/28, I had a phone conference with staff person from Council Member Kate Harrison from the City of Berkeley. They were interested in us putting in an induction stove at the Brazilian room, and I told them, well, PG&E kind of, because the power there is so iffy, especially in those internal areas, that we pretty much have to go with propane stoves as they planned. So, and then the Trails Workshop on the 29th, I thought was incredible, very successful, a lot of input, and I think collaboration is the way to go. And I think the people that attended got that sense, and I think my hat's off to Sean Dugan and staff for pulling that off. And then on the 30th, I attended the retiree party for Marie, bittersweet. Introducing or acknowledging the passing of Aaron Cobb, and then also then celebrating Marie's eventual retirement. She's here for us for another week, right? And then that afternoon, the Finance Committee met here. And then on the 31st, had another meeting with another prospective candidate for Ward 1. And then on the 1st, it was a continuation of local electeds, and we met at the home of Gary E. from the Oakland Unified School District. And it was attended by Robert Rayburn from BART, Elsa Ortiz from AC Transit, myself, and so there was some good things coming out. There's a possible resolution to the Chabot Space and Science Center, we hope, that Shang Tao from Oakland City Council and Gary Yee from Oakland Unified School District are working on. Let's hope that goes forward. And learned about BART's commitment to diversifying the workforce. They're engaged with different groups to train locally. And then AC Transit, their constraints, their BRT is going to be put on hold for completion by a couple of years because of all the, as they're digging all these, they're digging up the streets, they're running across PG&E, East Bay mud, City of Oakland sewers, and so all that, they were hoping for completion this year, but it's going to be, they were saying another 2 years. But so it was a successful event, and so we're hoping to continue with the local electeds. And then I had a phone conference with Dana Poblet from the Save the Redwoods League, and just kind of downloaded what I know about Dr. Leah Reinhardt, and I invited her to the Founders event, which I hope she can attend. Yeah, final comments. Definitely second all the, this has been a hard couple weeks for staff, and I just wanted to acknowledge too our existing park staffs. With winds like that, we must have dozens and dozens of trees down, and so it's going to probably take us a couple weeks just to inventory which trails are closed and which, so a lot of work still to be done. Acknowledge all the firefighters and the efforts, and shout out to the police department for their efforts. And also I'd just like one last time to recognize our losses in the last couple of months of Omar Gutierrez from Point Pinole, and Israel Lopez Garibay from Roberts, and then Aaron Cobb from Mast, and also our latest retiree to pass away, Geronimo Rodriguez.
Thank you, Director. Director Dodson, do you have anything to report?
Tremendous experience being involved with the Park District Pompano, and look, I can't say what I'm doing because I don't know. but I do know where I'll be at. It sounds kind of contradictory, but I've got a lot of things to do. And being put on a spot like this is kind of scary, but I've got the Point Pinole is what my interests were, and that's coming to an end, and it's good. It's a good exit for me.
I'd like to add that you got a great recognition with your son at the Employees Recognition event.
Right.
Do you remember that? That was
Yeah.
terrific. I mean, you should be very proud of yourself because all the staff was very proud of you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So you just hang in there.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it's all about. First of all, we're looking at one of those beautiful pictures around of one of our parks, Del Val. I would like us to send a thank you card from the board to every one of these photographers when we use one of those photos, because they spend a lot of time doing this. They don't do it casually. And this is at Del Val, and it's certainly, I wouldn't have been there at the right moment, but this photographer was. I attended the operations meeting, the employee recognition event where Whitney had outstanding applause, as he deserved. And of course, staff did a great job of recognizing those employees who have been with us so long, and we kept saying, stay with us a little longer. And the Congo dance was pretty good. The Sonol Hootenanny, I talked to a lot of young families, and they say they feel so comfortable there. It's a young family kind of event. It's just very special. And Gordon says, what a wonderful place he has to work now. If you haven't visited, go and see what's available. The board field trip, Beverly got to see all of these wonderful places that are quick accesses for a lot of people in her area, and sharing with some other board members. Finance went off just fine. I missed the grazing dinner. I certainly understood why we couldn't have it, but it's always fun just to talk to our people who are out there helping us. And we get a few complaints, but I think it's good to meet up with them and hear what's going on, because they're very important to us. This Friday, we have the Tri-Valley Conservancy with a claim. It is the last Jeans and Jewels event, and several of us will be there and enjoy it, whatever we choose to wear. And I'm going to say again that the private citizen who took the effort to get involved with those fires, it was great to see the publicity on it, because I think it reminds people that do the right thing, don't get involved directly, but follow, contact the police, and take care of it. And that individual deserves a lot of recognition. So, anybody have anything to add? If not, we're going to call it, take one more look at the picture, adjourned.